Hello friends, and welcome. My name is Popeye. Today we're playing some more Igarashi Chapter 8, Matsuribayashi, or the Festival Accompanying Chapter. Last time we finished the introduction. It only took like 6.5 hours to beat the introduction. And in the introduction it was basically just, the introduction was all about Takano's life leading up to her coming to Hinamizawa. So in that we saw her escaping from, her trying to escape from the orphanage. Actually, before I get into that, some trigger warnings, because even the summary, as I'm thinking about it, it's going to have some massive trigger warnings. This game has pretty mature themes. If any of these, the following are not for you, please by all means find some place that you'd rather spend your time this evening. This game includes themes such as death, murder, dismemberment, torture, rape, child abuse, kidnapping, blood, gore, any of those things against a minor. Suicide and body horror as well, also against a minor. If you miss any of what I said and want me to repeat it, either feel free to ask me or check down below in the description where I have a list of all of those trigger warnings. Okay, back to the summary. She tries to escape, she gets caught, and this is what made me think of it. She goes back, finds out all of her friends are being caught, and they're all being tortured in different ways. One friend was rolled up in a carpet upside down while people beat the side of the carpet with swords, like the wooden fencing practice swords. One person was being waterboarded in the shower. They stuffed them into a locker and then would fill the locker with water. And it would have those, like little grates that you have in lockers so that the water could fill out, but they were basically waterboarding a child. I think there was another child where they were like literally ripping their hair and scalp out or something. And then the implication, they don't really say, but they throw her in a small bathroom, have her take off her clothes and have her stay there for several days. I think the implication is that they take turns raping her. Wonderful, like just what every orphanage wants to be known for. And fortunately for her, she is saved because Hifumi, Dr. Hifumi, who she called when she escaped, finds her after a few days, fills out the paperwork, and adopts her and takes her home with him. And then we switch back to, that was all just a nightmare that she was remembering. Switches back to the doctor. They're doing work because he's got a presentation coming up to potential research investors. So they have to organize all his notes because this is, predates computers and stuff. So they have to organize his notes, type, or I don't even know if they had a typewriter, but write up like a summary that they can give to all the people who are attending. And clean up everything and all that. So they come over, but they actually got shot down by the Japanese government, telling them that they under no means can support this research, and they're told to go, but basically ridicule it and blow it off. So they do. Of course, the professor and Takano, neither of them like that. And Takano basically from that point decides, I'm going to do whatever I can to support my father. So there's a montage where she becomes the top student in her school, one of the top students in the country, goes to the top university for science, and ends up in the top virus research institute as her what's it called, as a doctor, residency, I think, and then eventually finishes off her grandfather's research, and then makes her way to Hinamizawa for the project, which is now supported by the government, and it ends with her making a challenge to Hanyu, basically being my will is stronger than you as a god. If you think you can stop me, bring it on. And Hanyu accepts. And then we get to this thing, which is called Connecting Fragments. It's 7 pages of fragments. And as you can see, we watched this one with the blue box around it. To advance, we have to watch all of these. And if you look at these ones, you can see this one says a fragment from the Tatari Goroshi chapter is required. Several fragments are required. And so on. And then if we look at, where is a good example? This one. This fragment is required first. So watching certain fragments unlock other fragments. And later, this is something I learned literally 10 minutes ago. The secret ending, we don't have to do them in order now, but there is a secret ending to this game when after you beat it, you rewatch all the fragments in a very specific order. But for right now, we just have to watch them in the way that the prerequisites state. Fortunately, I think the secret order is actually fairly similar to the secret ending order. So I'm going to follow it as best as we can, because I think that's also... so we did this one. This one was a meeting from the government about the dam project when it was first introduced to the village, and the fighting that occurred there. So something that predates anything we've seen. And if you look below, this one, Satoshi Hojo, is actually something we can view right now. But this isn't. This is the 15th one we're supposed to watch in the secret ending, but we can watch it now. The second one would be on screen 5, the bottom right. Okay, and actually, they're proving me wrong. We can't actually do this in this order, so... Oh, or can we? Let's back out to menu. So I thought we weren't actually able to do that one, unless the thing we saw was the single prerequisite. Not that it should matter, because I think at this point we just need to literally watch all of them. But I'm just trying to understand how it works. It's okay, yeah, that one we okay, there we go. This fragment can't be connected yet. Okay, so that's... Oh, and then you get this thing. Okay, interesting. Interesting. So if we go back to connecting fragments, is that one? Oh, that's still shattered. Interesting. I'm gonna boot out and load just so we don't have that shattered one, because I don't know if that has any implications, if that stops us from getting the perfect ending. So it was page 5. Oh, the conflict between the Hojo family and Sonozaki family is required, which was what we saw in the first one. That's why this allowed us to do it. Okay, so let's do this one. I'm going to try and do them in order as best as I can, but we'll have to see. I assume that you can't do the secret ending because you can't view all of them in the correct order the first time, or there's a piece missing. But we'll try, because if it's in chronological order, that would make the most sense. I ran into Sadako while on my way to the grocery store for my mother. Okay, couple things. We're Rika, I'm presuming. Sadako doesn't live with her, and her mother is still alive, which is a significant time back. Sadako said she was going there too, so we decided to go together. Exchanging our shopping list, it became easy to guess what the other family would be having for dinner. Sadako's family's having grilled fish and cooked vegetables. We're having Salisbury steak.
そういえばリカ、大福とかシュークリームとか甘いものが嫌いだったんではございませんこと？別に嫌いではないのです。意地悪で食べないだけなのですよ。食べる気なら何個でも食べられちゃいますのです。パンプキンパイだって美味しくいただけますのですよ。
So the reason why Rika doesn't eat sweet things is simply only because Hanyu likes them and she just spites Hanyu. Because apparently they share taste buds. I don't know why that's a relevant piece of knowledge to know, but they do.
リカだけ好き嫌いがないなんてずるいですわ。
Conversations like this are how I have fun. Sadako is my best friend. I usually don't like grocery shopping, but if I'm with Sadako, I can make it into an enjoyable evening stroll. Near the supermarket, there's a grocer's and other shops forming a little shopping district. The grocery store is busy this time of day. All the housewives in Himizawa gather here to shop. Since Sadako and I have different things to buy, we decided to do our shopping separately. There were several candies for the owner's occasional asthmatic attack inside a sieve full of change hanging in the front. I picked out a sweet from there and gave it to me. My favorite flavor, strawberry milk. I put it in my pocket so I can brag about it to Sadako later. So we're also spiting Sadako. Get a lot of fun out of teasing Sadako and making her jealous. She always overreacts, so I never get bored when I'm with her. I enjoyed that conversation while filling my shopping basket. Then I overheard some woman whispering. They're talking about something that's a little harsh. They're talking about Sadako. How long do those village traders plan to stay here? They should just leave. They don't even have the guts to go shopping themselves. They make their daughter do it instead. Women went on and on. Representatives of the Hojo family and the Sonozaki family got into a huge fight at the explanatory meeting for the dam project. The Hojo family has been ostracized within the village. First, there were a significant number of families in favor of leaving like the Hojos. The main branch of the Sonozakis led a push to completely solidify the village's opinion. And as that tone of unified resistance grew stronger, the pro-evacuation families steadily grew quiet. The public harassment led by the Sonozakis and Kimiyoshis, two of the three families with powerful influence in the village, also played an effect too. The Sonozaki family made the Hojo family into an example to ensure there would be no more pro-evacuation supporters. The ancestors of the village had lived there for generations, and the villagers also know that they themselves will be buried in this village, so this harassment put a lot of pressure on them. Who was it that agreed to make the Hojo family the leader of the pro-evacuation group at the explanatory meeting? Those same people no longer said anything. They even joined in on harassing the Hojo family. The harassment they faced then became pressure from the entire village. The Hojo family is hardly wealthy, and they haven't paid the town council fees in a long time. When things were peaceful, nobody said anything about it. Now that the wind was blowing a different way, the Hojo family was asked to pay off all their late council fees immediately. It wasn't an amount they couldn't afford. The Hojos recognized a fight was being picked with them, and they responded to it. And so, the Hojo family quit the town council. That only played right into the village's evil plan. Making an enemy of the town council meant facing vicious harassment. For example, the place the Hojos dumped their trash was a provisional dumping site established by the town council and the waste management department. Under the council agreement, only council members could use it. Ever since the day the Hojo family quit the village council, their trash bags were returned to their front door. Furthermore, all the bags were torn. On top of that, a sign went up on the hedge road near the Hojo family. It said, "Private road, no trespassing. Only council members permitted." A stubborn old man stood and guarded the road, saying that he would not let any of the Hojo family members pass through. Private road is private property opened up to the public. It looks just like a normal road. However, it's private property. The owner can forbid anyone else to pass through whenever they like. More and more, the village piled on vicious harassment. Fear of antagonism spread throughout the entire village, and people became afraid that if they supported the Hojo family, they'd go through the same thing. That made the Hojo family even more isolated. The grown-ups haven't told their kids about what's going on, so Sadako hasn't been harassed in any way at school. It wasn't hard to imagine she probably spent her days feeling so anxious she could hardly breathe. Even the women whispering in here aren't saying anything directly to Sadako. It's not like she does notice their muttering and the cold stares. When did this village become so cold towards her? Your best friend, it's very sad for me. Sadako's shopping experience is nothing like mine. When I say hello or buy things, I usually get treats or a discount. That doesn't happen to Sadako. On the contrary, she's served last on purpose, and sometimes shop owners even pretend they don't hear her. Obviously, people don't want to have anything to do with her. Sadako had been weaving through the housewives crowding the shop, telling the fishmonger what she wanted, but she kept getting ignored. She decided to keep her smile and pretend she doesn't mind, but I know. It's far too painful for her to endure. At that point, Sadako dropped her coins on the ground. Maybe her finger got stuck on something when she was trying to put the change back into her wallet. I ran through the crowd to help her pick them up. As I did, I noticed something. Sadako dropped a lot of coins and is struggling to pick all of them up, but nobody is helping her. Not just that, it's almost like they're acting like they don't even see her there. Sadako isn't expecting anyone to help her, and she's the one who dropped them. But there's so many people around, not even one is trying to aid her. That reaction is all I need to tell how hurt she is. Furthermore, when I started to help Sadako, other housewives started to pick up the coins too. As if it's the natural thing to do. They can only help if a shrine maiden of the Furude family does. If I didn't help, they would have disregarded her completely. The fact that other people helped, only because I did, hurt Sadako even more. I grabbed the coins from the housewives without thanking them. I'd rather spit at them than do that. She didn't thank them, people would talk about that too. Sadako forced out her words of gratitude. Housewives looked down at her with blank expressions. Can't stand this. Can't stand what Sadako is going through right now. I grabbed Sadako's arm and pulled her away. I was frustrated, sad, and bitter. What has Sadako done? Reality is just too cruel. Everyone loves me. But can I share that love with Sadako? Sadako must be wondering why people treat me so differently. I shouldn't come shopping with her, or rather, I should have done her shopping instead. I want to at least ease her pain a little bit. I pulled out the strawberry milk candy I just received. Sadako refused to take it. My hand froze. She saw me getting this candy. Sadako turned her back on me and kept walking. Without even saying goodbye, she continued on to her house with the shopping bags in her hands. I only wanted to ease her pain, but I ended up rubbing salt in her wound. How can I call myself her best friend? If I could, I would have crushed the candy right there. There we go. Mouse froze for a second there. Alright. Okay, so that was the second of like 50 odd. Third one's back on screen too, assuming we can do it. This fragment is required first. This is the dam construction operation withdrawal.
いやー、遅くなって申し訳ございません。今日はどういうわけか、患者さんが多くて。
お疲れ様です、入江兄さん。
Tomitake stood up suddenly and saluted when he saw Irie coming into the room.
そのニサというのはどうかやめてください。私は医者です。どうもその軍隊的な階級には馴染めません。せめて所長でお願いします。
了解しました、入江所長。
Tomitake, of course, knew that Irie didn't like being called Lieutenant Colonel, so it was something of a joke. They laughed casually together. On the other hand, Takano looked rather fed up with it. Couldn't stand hearing the same joke over and over, and was even thinking about talking to Tomitake about it. But she didn't want to hurt his feelings, so she simply never had the chance. Maybe it's because of how Tomitake pronounces it. She kept hearing Risa. Lieutenant Colonel in Japanese is Nisa. When she heard it that way, she kept hearing Irie Risa every time Tomitake said it. Takano told Irie about it. He had a good laugh. Today was just a simple meet and greet. Tomorrow was the actual meeting. Just out of sheer curiosity. Where is... Can we play it back and actually hear what he says?
お疲れ様です、入江兄さん。
I hear the N for Nisa. Tomitake had already arrived. There would be more inspectors from Tokyo at the meeting, waiting to hear about the progress that had been made.
それはそうと、ダムのことで村中が盛り上がってるみたいですね。
それはもう村中大変な騒ぎですよ。私も役員として自治体の地元説明会に参加してきたのですが、土星と馬星のそれはもう賑やかな説明会となりました。
After the basic Hinamizawa Dam project was announced, the village was consumed with uproar. The government retracted their plans for concessions rather early on. They made their aggressive stance clear. They didn't want the locals to take advantage of them by showing their willingness to compromise. However, that backfired horribly. As they had historical ties to the land, the government's actions only made their bond stronger. Neither the government nor the locals wanted to back down.
南沢の人は気性が激しいですものね。やっぱり鬼の血が流れてるからなのかしら。
笑い事じゃないですよ。あの説明会に夜中まで付き合わされた方の身にもなってみてください。
それはお気の毒でしたね。
What is this? Oh.
いや、本当に笑い事ではないですよ。富武さん、ダム計画はどうなってるんですか？本当にこの村はダム湖に沈められてしまうんですか？
それについては東京の方でも圧力をかけています。表向きは騒ぎになっていますが、実際の裏方ではかなり屋台骨がぐらついているはずです。
その圧力が早く効くといいんですがね。村は朝から晩まで賑やかで、村人の心もこのところすさんできたように思います。診察に来るお年寄りに捕まってたっぷりと反ダム論争を聞かされる時がありますよ。
付き合わなければいいのに。入江所長は人がいいから。
そうもいきません。私は研究所の所長である以前に診療所の所長でもあります。話を聞くのもケアの一環ですので。
それはとても良いことです。感服いたします。
私は東京の皆さんがうまく圧力をかけてくれて、いずれはダム計画を撤回してくれるものと分かっているからいいですが、村人にとっては先祖代々から住んできた土地を追い出されかねないと本当にすごい騒ぎです。
立ち退けと言われても引っ越せるほどのお金もなく若さもなく、 立ち退き保証金の額の釣り上げが狙いだったのかもしれないけど、急にお役所の態度が変わっちゃって全面衝突。こうなってしまったら穏便に決着というのは無理かもしれませんわね。
かつては保証金に納得して立ち退きに応じようという人たちも少しはいたんですが、御三家の園崎家が強硬意見で村人をリードしてましてね、国との対決姿勢を煽っているようなんです。凱旋者みたいなのがよく騒がしくしてますし、ビラやらチラシやら機関紙やらが回覧板と一緒によく回ってきますよ。
ここに住む人にとっては大変な問題ですからね。気持ちはわからなくもありません。
そういう意味では思惑は多少違うかもしれませんが、撤回されればこの村もすぐに落ち着きのある元の村に戻るでしょうから。
もちろん分かってます。それについては東京の方で交渉を進めておりますので、もうしばらく私どもにお任せください。
東京の方で噂を聞いたんですけれど、建設省の方になかなかうまく圧力をかけられるコネクションがなくて苦労してるとか。
いや私ごときでは詳しくは知りませんが、水面下調整がうまくいっていないのではという話も少し聞きます。
Japan had powerful people supporting her, but they didn't control all of Japan. There were some things they excelled in, but also some other things that they weren't too good at. Finding a good way to put pressure into the Minister of Construction fell into the latter.
冗談抜きでダムができますから、ここを立ち退いてくださいなんて話には本当にならないんですわよね。
もちろんです。それだけは絶対に問題ありません。時間がかかっているだけですので、皆さんはどうかそこは任せて研究を進めてください。穏便に済ませることができない場合は、最終的な荒領事も辞さないことで意見はまとまっておりますので。
荒領事とは何ですか、富武さん。
そこは我々の領分です。入江所長は気にされなくて結構です。どうかお任せください。
そうですか。わかりました。よろしくお願いいたします。
大丈夫ですわよ、入江所長。ダム計画は絶対に撤回されますわ。だってそう決まっているんですもの。
Kano giggled. Tomitake laughed, too. However, Irie couldn't understand what was so funny, so he felt left out. Irie only understood the meaning of those drastic measures when he examined a young boy he had never seen in the village before. And of course, that young boy was the minister's grandson that they kidnapped in Chapter 4, that he examined once he was rescued. That was 3. Where the heck's 4? 4 is on screen 3. This one. Jiro Tomitake. Forecast said that there was a chance of rain in the evening. I didn't think it would rain so hard. So I had to walk to an abandoned bus stop for the rain clouds to clear.
ごめんよ、高野さん。
あら、いいのよ、気にしないで、次郎さん。私も土砂降りになるかもしれないことを覚悟の上で出かけたんだから。
Ana-san giggled. Although the weather might change suddenly, I dragged her out here. I feel stupid for making her come along and end up ruining her precious day off. I have to go back to Tokyo tonight, so it'll be a while before I can return to Hinamizawa. Didn't want to spend my last day at a cheap hotel in Okonomiya, so I asked her to go for a stroll.
本当に申し訳ない。
She teased me for a while, but only a little. She wasn't actually enjoying driving me into a corner. That's just her way of communicating, and I find it very charming. I I think I've become captivated by her. On her part, I'm just not at her from Tokyo. That's why she's being nice to me. It's definitely not because she likes me personally. So I feel like I might have used my position to drag her out here, and that makes me a little depressed. Probably should think this slight fever I have is due to nothing more than a cold. She was the type of person who made it clear that when she disliked something. She wouldn't say so directly, but she'd use all kinds of indirect expressions that meant the same thing. So I wanted to believe that she's out here because she might be even a little bit attracted to me. I shook my head as I frowned upon my own selfish thoughts. She chuckled as though she knew what I was thinking. I felt myself starting to go red after that.
東京ではさぞや女性にモテるでしょうに。なぜわざわざ私みたいなおかしな女に付き合ってくださるのかしら。
おかしななんてことはないよ。高野さんは十分魅力的だよ。むしろ僕みたいな男のために貴重な休日を割いてもらったのが申し訳。
確かに私はとても大切な研究のために生涯を捧げたつもりだけど、それだけじゃ人生は潤いがないもの。たまには頭を切り替えて遊ぶことも大事だし、それに異性とのコミュニケーションは脳の活性にもとてもいいんだから。
僕ごときで高野さんの頭の気分転換のお役に立ててるならいいんだけどね。
あなたは私と一緒にいても気分転換にはならない。
She gives me an impish smile that makes my heart skip a beat. I tried hiding my embarrassment so she wouldn't notice even my ears going red.
そんなことないよ。僕も高野さんと一緒に過ごせると、いろいろと気分転換になるよ。それにほら、高野さんに野鳥撮影のことを布教すれば、僕も撮影の同志を得られるわけだしね。もしよかったら、次に来るときは僕の古いカメラを持ってくるよ。買うと高いからね。
ありがとう。あなたを虜にする野鳥撮影がどれくらい楽しいのかぜひ教えていただけると嬉しいわ。
うん。僕のおフルで少し挑戦してみて馴染めそうだったら新しいカメラを買う方がいいんじゃないかな。
ありがとう。次に来てくださるときはぜひ私の写真の批評をお願いするわね。
うん。どんな写真か楽しみだな。
きっと二郎さんみたいにはいかないわ。本当に初めてですもの。
While she keeps her cool and smiles, all I can do is blush and scratch my head. I'm being conceited. I can't help but think that Takano-san likes being with me. It's mere flattery. I didn't know she'd come along this far. Oh no. Taking women's flattery seriously is the mistake I always make. I assume that she's attracted to me.
こうして二郎さんと二人きりでゆっくりおしゃべりをするのは初めてね。
そうだね。いつも所長とか他の研究員の人とかがいたりするからね。
私、あなたのことを全然知らないの。あなたが東京でどんな仕事をしているかとか、今までどんなことをしてきたのかとか、自衛隊ではどんな活躍をされているのかしら。
昔ちょっとだけ教官の真似事をしてたけどね、怪我をした時に目をやっちゃってね。普段の生活には支障はないんだけど大ごとに受け取られちゃって、それ以来は事務屋の仕事ばかりやらされてるんだよ。
Kano-san giggles, saying I must have done something silly to cause the injury.
体内の広報誌を作る仕事を手伝った時にイベントの写真撮影で初めてカメラの魅力を知ったんだよ。カメラには人を幸せにする力があるのさ。何を言ってるんだろうって思ってるだろうけど、いやこれは本当なのさ。僕はカメラに触れるようになってから日々に幸せを感じるようになったと思ってるよ。
カメラでどうして幸せになれるのかしら。
カメラというのは日々の生活を切り取って写真にして残すものなんだ。残すくらいなんだから幸せなものを写したいというのは当然だろう。
Thanks for the work, Samus. Enjoy your game night.
じゃあ幸せなものはどこにあるんだろうとファインダー越しに自分の周りの世界を覗いてみると、そこには今まで当たり前だと思っていたものが実はとても幸せなものだったんだと気づくことでいっぱいなんだ。例えば路肩のアスファルトの隙間からけなげに生えている一輪のタンポポだって忙しく通り過ぎる時にはただの雑草に過ぎないけれど、ファインダー越しに覗いた時、それは春の訪れを教えてくれる季節からの素敵な贈り物であったことに気づけるんだよ。それを写真に収めアルバムに残す。そしてアルバムを再び開くたびにその時の幸せな気持ちが蘇ってくるんだ。
二郎さんは風景や野鳥の撮影をしながら
その写真が芸術的かどうかとか賞を取れるような劇的瞬間かどうかなんていう野心的なことは僕にとってあまり重要じゃないんだよ。僕たちが気づかない小さな幸せに気づかせてくれる。そこにこそカメラの魅力があるんだと思ってるんだ。だからそんな気持ちでこのひなみ沢をファインダーで覗けることはとても楽しくて幸せなことなんだよ。
I have a tendency to go overboard when I talk, but most of the time Takano-san playfully twists my words right back at me. It's very unusual for her to listen to me talk like this. Takano-san sat next to me and tried to fiddle with my camera. I don't know how much of an impression I made, but I think she is indeed interested in cameras. Expecting her to tease me like usual, so I'm happy to see that this is her reaction.
試してみるかい？
私にもできるかしら。
簡単だよ。最初はピントの合わせ方とシャッターの押し方だけ覚えれば十分さ。持ってごらん。ああ、レンズには絶対に触れちゃダメだよ。
ブー、簡単じゃないじゃない。
When she seemed to show an interest in cameras, I wanted to take a walk around Hinamizawa and take some pictures of the scenery. Fortunately, the rain doesn't seem to want to stop. She was still having fun and kept taking pictures inside the bus stop. The first set of pictures she ever took were of odd things in that dark little building. Since then, every time we'd meet, she'd end up walking around the village with our cameras in hand. Okay, that was number 4. Next one we have is, this one, Irie. Group physical exams are very meaningful for our research. Though it's only for certain age groups, we can examine many of the Hinamizawa residents at the same time. It's a perfect cover for a research center. Also, because of several arrangements, we have a monopoly on the villagers' corpses, and perform autopsies on them too. There certainly was an environment this rich in opportunity for those in the medical field. Our follow-up on the work of the late Dr. Takano is going smoothly. The amount of data he compiled is absolutely astounding. He truly was an incredible researcher.
失礼します、所長。
ああ、高野さん、お疲れ様です。
先ほど東京から残りの検査結果が郵送されてきました。こちらに置きますわね。
ありがとうございます。いよいよ面白くなってきましたね。
この面白さを共有できてとても嬉しいですわ。
Takano-san is my assistant. She was sent from the self-defense force. She's far from the image I have of an SDF officer. Like our research is being concealed, maybe her identity is concealed too. I'm sure her name is an alias as well. I'm just a doctor and a researcher. Without Takano-san's support, it would be impossible for me to manage this institution. She's a pipeline to her clients in Tokyo, my assistant, as well as a researcher who's an expert on Hinamizawa syndrome. Her existence is absolutely necessary here. The more I think about it, the more I feel this should have been the Takano Institute rather than the Irie Institute, and she should have been the director. That was explained to me when they asked me to take this position. My client wanted a civilian to manage this place. They searched for a person who met their requirements, and there I was. I became the director. I have a feeling I'm just a puppet on their strings, but I won't just sit here and do nothing. I was asked to research a rare disease. I am a researcher, so of course I'm excited about that. My client's goals might be different, but I'm here out of the desire to unravel the mysteries of Hinamizawa syndrome and be the first person to uncover a new mystery for mankind.
ひなみざわ症候群という寄生虫感染症がほぼ間違いなく存在するという浮かし彫りの情報はいくらでも集まるのに、原因となる病原体が発見できないのはとても悔しいですね。
そうですわね。電子顕微鏡を使えばあっさりと見つかるだろうという期待も少しはしていたもので。
Viruses are too small to see with a regular microscope. The invention of the electron microscope was a dramatic advancement in the world of medicine. However, it's very expensive and there's no way for a normal doctor to acquire one. The late Dr. Takano said an electron microscope could find the cause of the disease, but it seems his theory has been proven wrong. Even Takano was hoping the electron microscope would find it. She was disappointed when she couldn't uncover anything after all the autopsies she performed. Our research seems to be hitting its first snag. It was actually stalling our work for several weeks now. So we need to think about where to go from here.
極小の極小なのか、あるいは検体そのものに問題があるのかもしれません。
と申しますと、
例えばですが、野生のネズミの体に多数のノミが寄生していることはご存知と思います。ですが、ネズミの死体を調べたところでノミを見つけることはできません。宿主が死んだ時点で寄生虫であるノミの生活基盤も崩壊するからです。
宿主が死ねば寄生虫にとってそれは地球が滅んでしまうのと同じこと。
そうです。滅びた後の地球を調べても人類を見つけることができないのと同じです。
ということは、滅ぶ前の地球を調べればよいという話になりますわね。
そうですね。ただ、滅ぶ前の地球には人権があります。生きているうちに調べることは難しいでしょう。
Examining a living human's brain. No matter how you sugarcoat it, that bore very grave meaning. From a medical standpoint, it's necessary. We have rules and morals in this world. We have to advance medicine within such boundaries. There was a time when I was studying lobotomies for the betterment of mankind. I don't think I was wrong, however. Would I ever be forgiven under ideas of ethics? I don't know. One day my judgment will be handed down by the devil. Whether I'm guilty or not, I have to accept it. As I reflected upon my past, I heard a voice. It was Takano-san's. It was very clear and simple. Yet, it struck me with surprise.
わかりました。滅ぶ前の地球を用意させましょう。
I'm startled. Sometimes the phrase advancing medicine bore the whisper of the devil, tempting us to accept sacrifices. I heard that devil whisper.
そんなに難しいことではありませんわ。ひなみ沢の住民で、すでに重篤の状態で市内病院に入院しており、いつ死んでもおかしくない患者を探させるだけですもの。
しかし、いくら余命いくばくとはいえ、自らの体を生きているうちに検体に差し出される勇気のある方がいらっしゃるでしょうか。
そんな必要はありませんわ。いずれ亡くなる方にほんの少し早くお休みいただくというだけの話ですわ。書類上ね。
Patient be legally declared dead even though they're still alive. We perform an autopsy while they're still alive.
無理でしょう。第一、頭蓋を切開するような大手術となれば絶対に痕跡は残ります。遺体を遺族の方が見られたら不審に。
そういうところを何とかできるのが私どもではありませんの。山犬に至急条件を満たす患者が存在しないか市内病院を調べさせます。すぐに研究対象をお連れいたしますから。
わかりました。
Takano-san is my partner, there's no question about that. But I just can't trust her. Her extremities as a researcher, which contrast largely with mine. But are we so different? I'm here simply waiting with a knife and fork in my hand, just as she told me to. I just don't want to witness such a gruesome scene, that's all. What she's preparing for me now is exactly what I want. So who's the hypocrite? Not her, it's me. How can I say I'm different knowing what I've done in the past? I've performed lobotomies without patients' consent despite its surgery that might affect their lives forever. How is that different from what she's doing? Never doubted my past achievements. However, when I look at her, I start to feel unease. Kana-san is talking with Okanogi-san on the intercom in my office. I'm sure she's telling him to come over so she can explain to him what was just discussed. I'm simply watching without stopping her. I begin to reflect upon my past to remember why I chose to become a doctor. Clearly to do unethical research. That's why we became a doctor. That was scene 5. Okay, so next is Iria's background, which requires the one we just did, I assume. I wanted to become a doctor ever since I was little. Doctors make a lot of money. People look up to doctors. I think those are the kinds of reasons I had. I played with my friends. I always acted like a doctor. Clean their wounds and applied ice packs when my friends sprained their ankles, using what I learned from the household medical books. Everyone, including me, believed I'd become a doctor one day. My family was poor, so they praised me for that goal. They told me that I need to study a lot to become a doctor, so they borrowed some pseudo-medical books from the local library for me. The rental fees weren't cheap. I would speed read one book in a day, and the next day my parents would go back to the store to exchange it for a different book, saying they accidentally borrowed a book they already borrowed before. By doing so, my parents borrowed 2 books for the price of 1. Of course, now I know those books were rather useless, but they were highly motivational just the same. My neighbors called me Dr. Kyosuke-kun. I was always picked for class health officer at school. Even my teachers helped me with the classes I needed to take to become a doctor. Of course, in reality, becoming a doctor isn't as easy as it might seem. I studied diligently, and the path was most definitely rough. To become a doctor, one must attend college. Since my family was poor, I was told I wasn't allowed to go to an expensive private school, so I had to be admitted to a national public university. My grades weren't bad, but the admission rate to national public universities is very marginal. Especially since I wanted to go to a medical school, my chances were even smaller. I studied like crazy. My only driving force was my childhood dream of becoming a doctor. Dream of becoming a doctor and to be looked up to by everyone kept me going. I was admitted. I wasn't at the top of the list, but I made it in. Finally at the starting point to make my childhood dream come true. My parents were thrilled. Neither my father nor mother went to college. They were proud of their son getting into a public medical school. They invited our relatives over to celebrate. Although it was a public university, tuition wasn't cheap, but they had an extravagant celebration anyways. My father didn't express his emotions much. He always kept a straight face, rarely voiced his opinion or took initiative on anything. My mother took care of everything and he showed up last and left without saying a word. The typical stern and silent Japanese father of the time. But I was surprised to see him shedding tears of joy, and I cried along with him. Went around all my relatives were repeatedly slapping my back, saying how proud and lucky he was to have a son like me, bragged about my achievements to all who would hear them. The celebration became my farewell party as I was about to leave for Tokyo. Father yelled "Banzai" repeatedly at the train station as the train pulled away. I was a little embarrassed, but could no longer see my father. I could clearly recall the tears pouring down. Days of hellish studying and exams began after that. Some days I was tempted to just give up and submit myself to the lavish lifestyle of the city. Letters from my family always encouraged me and gave me the strength to go on. My dream then was to open up my own clinic in my hometown so I can contribute to the region. I never even dreamed of getting involved with brains. One day I noticed a difference in a letter from my family. The letter said the usual about how things were at home and asked how I was doing, but the postscript was what caught my attention. Your father has become really violent lately. Sometimes he turns the house upside down and I don't know what to do. I just couldn't picture him acting viciously. I was extremely surprised. Did something happen? Postscript, my mother said there was nothing she could think of. Mother and father had been together for a long time, been together since well before I was born. So she noticed things that I couldn't. She couldn't even think of a reason why my father had become so violent. What happened? We got along so well, they were such a lovely couple. It caused a problem for my mother when I was little. My father only bonked my head with his knuckle. Why was he acting this way towards my mother? Maybe there was some kind of misunderstanding between them? I was going home for the new year. Maybe I could have a good talk with him then. The situation was a lot more serious than I thought. On one cold winter day, I found my apartment door unlocked. I thought someone had broke in, but I found my mother in my apartment with her luggage. That's right, my mother could no longer take my father's fury and came to stay with me. This was back when people still believed in the proverb, a woman has no place to settle down all her life. She couldn't go back to her own family because they lived in the same region as my father, so she came all the way to Tokyo. I heard about my father's violence from my mother's own lips. She cried, saying she had no idea why such a quiet man changed like that. She said she wasn't ever going back to him. I didn't know what to do. I asked her if she could talk to him one more time, but the bruises on her body told me it was no use. To remember what happened afterwards is too much, so I'll be brief. After my mother left, my father thought she was having an affair and went over to the neighbor's house with a wooden sword. He was arrested. He was released immediately, but he assumed someone in the neighborhood was hiding her, so he did the same thing repeatedly. He eventually reached the point of getting into fights with anyone he saw, and he picked a fight with some young punks and ended up being beaten to death. My relatives gave my father a decent funeral, but my mother didn't attend. No use beating a dead horse. So nobody said anything negative about my father, but everyone was simply puzzled as to why he changed so much. What I heard from my relatives about my father's final days was a lot stranger than what I'd heard from my mother. My mother only told me about his sudden rage and violence. My relatives told me. He also laughed and grew sad. Apparently he displayed several fluctuations of emotion, especially so in his last years. They also told me he started to complain about headaches after an accident he had. My father was a construction worker. He had hit his head hard on a construction board during an accident at work. He regained his consciousness quickly and seemed fine, but since the accident he started to have headaches and behave abnormally. I sensed the connection between the accident and my father's changes, so I talked to my professor after I went back to Tokyo.
断言はできませんが、その様子から入江君のお父さんに何らかの異常が起こっていた可能性は否めません。その事故の際に脳が傷つき、精神的な変化を起こしたのかもしれませんね。お父さんの晩年の言動からは、そんな患者さんに多く見られるいくつかの症状が伺えます。
Human behavior is created by the brain. The brain is damaged and can cause erratic behavior. In other words, my father wasn't crazy, he was suffering from a disorder.
お父さんの遺体を検視できるなら、脳をよく調べてみるといいでしょう。ひょっとすると腫瘍のようなものが見つかるかもしれません。
My father had already been cremated, so there's no way of knowing. But hearing about his behavior, I knew for sure. That was the only way to explain why such a quiet and gentle man would change. I tried to explain all this to my relatives to regain my father's honor, but hardly anyone understood. If his brain was damaged, he would have been dead. He was alive and well. The accident didn't damage his brain. It wasn't his brain that caused him to change, it was his mind. They simply brushed it off like that. This was the perception most people have about the brain. They don't realize the mind and brain are connected. Most of the relatives didn't believe me. There was one person who I really wanted to anyway, and that was my mother. As she got older, she grew senile, and she exaggerated the abuse she had to endure. All she did was criticize my father, and every time she ended up crying, lamenting that she married him. They were a lovely couple. We were a great family, so I wanted to convey to her she was misunderstanding the situation with my father. My father's behavior was caused by his brain damage. What he did to her was very sad, but he didn't want to be that way. I told her that he wasn't at fault. But my mother didn't understand. Before she took her last breaths, I begged her to forgive my father. But her final words were, "Please don't bury me next to that man." My father wasn't at fault. He was simply the victim of a brain disorder. You don't complain to a person who's coughing because he has a cold. His coughing is just a symptom, and he should be sympathized with. In father's case, the symptoms weren't as obvious as a cough. They took the forms of changes in personality which are much harder to recognize. If I'd studied the brain more, I could have explained it better to my mother so that she could have understood him. Then, they could have been a nice couple again in heaven. When I realized that, I cried. I also realized that there are plenty of people like my father in this world who are suffering from a disorder, yet they are misunderstood and despised for it. And then I found out. I found out about a miraculous cure for such disorders called a lobotomy. Ever since that day, I spent my days learning about the brain so I could help people who are suffering from mental illnesses. My father is gone, but if he was still alive, I could cure him myself, so he and my mother could reconcile. That's the main reason why I'm here. And we're just gonna get a dump of a bunch of information. Okay, that was number 6. Number 7. Screen 2. I don't think we can do this one yet. Research is stagnated, we've done. Instructions for the kidnapping operation. Ah, has that been done? Let's save and see. Somehow I get the feeling that hasn't been done. Oh, it's been done. That very night, the head of the Frude family, the priest, gathered his wife and Rika together for a family meeting. In Mizawa's tradition for the 3 families to gather and discuss the village's issues. It was hardly unusual for the big families like the Sonozaki family and the Kimiyoshi family to have meetings beforehand to sort out opinions among themselves. However, the Frude family had lost its branch families, so there were only 3 of them left. Until that day, they'd never had a family meeting at all.
ひょっとしてダムに関わるお話ですか?
The dam was the most important issue in the village at the moment. Wife naturally assumed the priest wanted to talk about the dam. And to gather all of them together like that, it must be a huge decision he had to make. Perhaps he's going to talk about joining the pro-evacuation camp.
いや、ダムの話ではない。だが、この村に関わる、いや、この村のご先祖様たちにも関わる、とても大事な問題だ。
The Frude family had served in the priesthood of Oyashiro-sama, guardian deed of the village for generations. For him, the head of the family, to start out that way must have been something extremely important. Yet, he said it wasn't about the dam, so what could it be he wanted to talk about?
私は入り婿だ。だから、フルデ家の本当の血を受け継ぐお前とリカには、よく聞いてほしい。お前たちは、普通の人間ではないのだ。
僕は、お社様の生まれ変わりなのですよ。
リカ、そういうのは口にしてはいけません。あなた、そういう話はリカのいないところでしましょう。それでなくっても、集会所の年寄りたちがリカに妙なことばかり吹き込んで。
その、お社様の生まれ変わりというのが、どうも、本当らしいのだ。
はあ？
少し長い話になる。2人ともしばらく黙って私の話を聞きなさい。
Wife had a dumbfounded expression on her face, not knowing what he was going to say, but Rika was completely relaxed, wearing her usual carefree expression. Priest started to talk after his wife to calm down.
大昔からある病気があるのだ。それはこの地にだけある特別な病気。それにはこの村に住む者が全員かかっている。今この村に住んでいる者だけではない。大昔から住んでいたご先祖様たちもみんなずっとこの病気にかかってきたのだ。
そんな、だって私たちはみんな普通に生活していますよ。この村だけの病気なんて聞いたこともない。
落ち着きなさい。 その病気はな、この村にいる限り何も問題はないのだ。だがこの村を出て遠くの地へ行くと発病してしまう。わかるか？
わかるわけないでしょ。何のことだかさっぱり。
お社様のたたりと同じなのです。
Rika said it so calmly while her mother became frustrated.
そうだ。この村から離れるとたたりがあるのと同じなのだ。つまりお社様のたたりだとご先祖様たちが代々恐れてきたのはこの村だけにしかない
そんなことあるわけないです。だって私たちだって時には村を離れることもあるじゃないです。村の人だって仕事で遠くへ出かける人だっているし、海外に出かける人だって。
うん、それは長い長い時間を経て病気が徐々に弱まってきたかららしい。だからこのままさらに長い時間をかければ消えてなくなってしまうものだったのだ。だがそれがダム戦争のせいでおかしくなったらしい。ダム戦争で今村中が熱に浮かされたように興奮している状態にあるのはみんなも分かっているだろう。そういう興奮状態や情緒不安定な状態はこの病気を悪化させてしまうらしいのだ。
よく話が分かりませんけど、つまりこの大昔からたたりだと呼んできたものは全てその病気の仕業だとおっしゃるんですね。そうだ。お社様の作った決まりは全てこの病気から村人を守るための決まりだったのだ。そんな、それじゃお社様は神様ではなく病気が正体なんですか？そんなこと古出家代々のご先祖様たちに説明できますか？
落ち着きなさい。お社様の信仰は変わらない。お社様がひなみ沢を見守ってくださることに何の変わりもない。お社様のたたりを再現する病気がこの村には大昔からあったということ、それだけなんだ。
そんなのは認められません。そんなこと亡くなった先代や先々代に説明できますか？古出家数百年の伝統に対する、いえお社様に対する冒涜です。そんなことをあなたに吹き込んだのは誰ですか？失礼極まりない。大地、そんな変な病気が実在するという証拠があるんですか？
ある。
それはどんな？誰が？
厚生省と国立感染症予防研究所の方からだ。病原体もすでに特定され、現在治療方法などを研究している最中だという。先週実際に厚生省の方はこの病気をひなみ沢症候群と呼んでいるらしい。
そんな。
ひなみ沢症候群は普通に生活している分には何も影響のない無害なものらしい。だがひなみ沢を遠く離れたり精神や情緒が不安定になったりすると発病しやすくなるという。発病すると妄想などに取りつかれ、最悪の場合異常行動に出ることもあるらしい。この病気は戦争中に発見されたんだそうだ。戦地でひなみ沢の兵隊だけ異常な病気を起こすことがあるのに、偉いかその辺の話はだいぶ詳しくしてもらったんだが、難しい内容だったので私の口からはこれ以上うまく説明できん。もし私の説明では納得できんというなら、お前も直接話を聞いてみればいい。私だって最初は何をバカなことを、お社様を冒涜する気かと憤慨していたのだから。その病気を研究するために入江診療所が作られたというんだ。あそこは表向きはただの診療所ということになっているが、実際は病気を調べるための隠し研究所らしい。
秘密で研究しているなんてうさんくさいじゃないですか。それも厚生省がやっていることなら堂々とやればいいじゃないですか。
いや、そうはいかんらしい。この病気の実態を把握しないまま存在するという事実だけが不十分な知識で広まってしまったら、病気を持っている人たちはもちろん無関係の人々も勘違いした差別を受けることになる。ひなみ沢の人間は皆怪しげな病気にかかっていて、そのせいで とんでもないことをするかもしれないなどという噂が日本中に知れ渡ったら大変だ。厚生省もそのことを心配していて、この病気については厳重に伏せた上で治療を目指すらしい。勘違いするな。私たちを見せ物にすると言うんじゃないぞ。この病気を根絶させ、この村を病気から解放しようとしているのだ。自給自足ができていた大昔ならともかく、現代では村から一歩も出ずに生活など成り立たん。村から出るだけで発病するかもしれない病気など、村人にとってどれほど危険なものかわかるだろ。繰り返しになるが、昨今反ダム戦争で村全体が強い興奮状態にあって、ひなみ沢症候群にとって非常に良くない状態にあるらしい。
もし村人がおかしくなって大変なことをしたら、きっとマスコミがパシャパシャでいっぱいなのです。
そうだ。うん、そうなったからでは手遅れなのだ。
そんな、いきなり言われても信用できませんわ。本当に相手は国の人？変な詐欺に騙されてるんじゃないですか？
信用できんのも無理はない。先方は研究所はいつでも見に来ていいと言っている。私はもう見せてもらっているが、あれは詐欺とかそういうレベルではない。ゴグラの大病院でもあんな大掛かりな設備はないぞ。お前も私の話に納得できないなら、研究所で詳しい話を聞かせてもらうといい。私よりもっと詳しく説明してくれるだろう。向こうは研究所の説明でも納得できないなら、東京の国立研究所で説明してもいいし、厚生省の本庁舎で直接説明してもいいと言っている。
でも信じる信じないは別にして、
古出家は代々お社様の血を受け継ぐと言われている。そして8代続いて女子が生まれれば、その8代目はお社様の生まれ変わりであるとも。
そうですわ。私が7代目、理香が8代目。でもそれとその病気に何の関係があるというんです？
このひなみ沢症候群という病気はある種の寄生虫によるらしい。虫といってもものすごく小さい。人の目には決して見えんくらいに。その虫たちには親分格がいるというのだ。
まさかそれがフルデ家だとおっしゃるんですか？
その親分格の寄生虫は代々フルデ家の直系だけに受け継がれるらしい。つまり先代はお前、今は理科だ。
バカバカしい。そんな話。大体ですね、寄生虫なんてそんな気持ち悪いもの。
だから落ち着きなさい。私では説明が下手だ。専門の人に説明を受けなさい。そして彼らが言うには、この病気の治療を研究するためには親分格の研究が不可欠だというのだ。
嫌です。そんな怪しげな研究まっぴらごめんですし、理科だってそんな研究には関わらせません。
だから落ち着きなさいというのに。彼らの研究ではひなみ沢症候群は村から離れると発病するのではなく、お前も小さかった頃、村人から陣痛力があると言われていたことがあるだろ。遠方に出かけ片頭痛などにかかったお年寄りがお前に払ってもらうとたちまち頭痛が消えたという陣痛力。それこそが親分格の証拠でもあるというのだ。フルデの血には発病者を救う力がある。それを研究するのは治療薬を見つけるためにもとても重要なことなのだそうだ。
僕を研究すると村のみんなが助かるのですか？
先方はそう言っている。
その病気は村の全員がかかっているのですか？僕もみんなもさとこも。
うん。村に住む人間全員だけでなく、沖宮に住む親類なども全て含むそうだ。多分何千人という規模になるだろう。それだけの大変な病気だから、厚生省がわざわざたくさんの予算を投じて専門の研究所を作ってくれたのだ。
私は反対です。リカをそんな怪しげな研究の生贄にするだなんて。
僕はいいのですよ。僕が生贄でさとこが助かるなら全然平気なのです。
リカは黙っていなさい。とにかく絶対反対です。あなたにそんな妙なことを吹き込んだ人たちには私が直接会って、リカを変な実験で殺されてたまるものですか。だいたいリカはフルデ家のたった一人の跡継ぎなんですよ。もしものことがあればフルデの血はここで絶えてしまうかもしれないじゃないですか。あなたはもっとですね、フルデの家のことを考えていただかないと。そんなだから村の人たちに日和見主義とかなんとか言われて、だいたいおかしいじゃないですか。建設省は村をダムに沈める、厚生省は村の病気を治す。何が何だかさっぱりわからないです。
厚生省はこの病気は環境の変化で大変発病しやすいと警告していて、建設庁に対しダム計画を中止するよう働きかけてくれているそうだ。だからお前も研究所を見せてもらいなさい。あれだけの大設備をダム湖に沈むかもしれない土地に建てるわけがない。
Rika let out a big yawn. It was long past bedtime for a little girl like her.
僕はもう寝ますです。父さん、僕はいつでも協力するとその人たちに言っておいてくださいなのです。
リカ、そんなことお母さんに断りなく勝手に決めちゃいけません。リカ、待ちなさい。リカ。
Okay, so Rika knew about the disease from a very early age and's been working with them. From this one, we have this one. Researching Hinizawa syndrome, there's something very important that needs to be discussed first. If something happens to the Queen Carrier, the village will collapse. This article, my grandfather called it the most dangerous situation. According to my grandfather, if the Queen Carrier dies, all the infected persons will go terminal within 48 hours. This may sound unbelievable at first, but research on the collapse of past local religions and group suicides around the world should indicate that there's some truth to it. Among all the mysterious incidents around the world, there were some caused by parasites controlling entire communities, very similar to Hinizawa syndrome. Grandfather picked a few cases that are very similar to the syndrome and investigated them. As a result, he confirmed multiple cases of entire communities losing their minds after the death of a religious leader or founder, and finally annihilating themselves. He stated that on average it happens within 48 hours. It's clear that infected people are affected by the Queen Carrier, and the condition of the Queen Carrier is in fact affecting the entire village. Trash, bud. Our statistics already prove that on weeks Rika felt sick and visited the clinic, we saw an exceptionally high number of visitors. Rika being sick with a simple cold has a massive impact. If something particularly bad happened to her, we'd be facing a serious situation within 48 hours. But the Irie Institute has to protect Rika Frude, the Queen Carrier. It's the most important mission of the Hinizawa Syndrome Research Project. She's already agreed to help us in our research, but we have to be very careful not to put her in any danger. Also, we have to protect her from anyone who would try to cause harm to her. Her life is equal to the lives of 2,000 villagers. But what if something happens to her by accident? The Irie Institute must prepare for that situation. So I worked on the draft of the emergency manual when the Irie Institute was first established. As a precaution in case the Queen Carrier dies, or if infected people show acute symptoms due to the death of the Queen Carrier. This is an emergency procedure which must be followed within 48 hours of the mass occurrence of the acute symptoms. Final measures to prevent the damage from spreading to nearby areas. The plan uses gas, making it look like a natural disaster. My client, the Alphabet Project, took the responsibility of working up the details of the plan. They're used to dealing with things like nuclear and biological weapons. They ended up being such a big help. There's no way I could have come up with a plan on my own to execute 2,000 villagers. Through a dummy company, the ground SDF has secured a closed quarry in the Gucci region upstream of Hinamizawa. This would be the secret storage base for the equipment that we'd use in that operation. Equipment that sprays deadly gas, that kills people, as if they were falling asleep, is stored here. In case of an emergency, a special unit of the ground SDF is to use this equipment to destroy the village. However, preparing for the execution of the villagers itself is politically dangerous. If I'm going to insist on them getting the equipment ready, I have to make them understand how dangerous Hinamizawa syndrome is, and also how urgent the need is to have a contingency plan. I have to prove the need for the plan by showing them enough data. The files my grandfather kept intact come in quite handy. Clients read my grandfather's articles about the syndrome. They were surprised to see how catastrophic things could be in the worst-case scenario.
つまり女王である一人の少女に何かがあれば村人2000人以上が全員錯乱するということなのですね。
はい。南沢症候群に極めて類似するいくつかのケースでは集団自殺を示すものが少なくありませんが、南沢症候群の場合、強い疑心暗鬼や過剰なまでの危機意識から何かの過剰防衛を行う可能性があり、被害それらは無政府状態の暴動から始まり、猟奇的なあるいは宗教的終末感にも似た異常な状況を作り出すでしょう。これに対する事前の鎮圧策を用意しなかった場合、世界の注目を浴びることは避けられません。また、その猶予は事態発生から48時間しかありません。
つまり、いざことが起こったらもう誰にも防げないということですな。
感染者全員を48時間以内に全員治療することは不可能なのかね？
無理だろう。それに治療方法すら確立していないし、研究所の規模では村人全員の救済は物理的に不可能だ。
しかしこのような恐ろしく珍しい病気があるとは世の中わからんもんですな。
常に最悪の事態に備えることは国防にも通じますし、我々アルファベットプロジェクトの理念でもあります。そして使うことが目的なのではなく、備えることそのものが肝要なのです。
確かにおっしゃる通りですな。運用規定については決済区分の強化などまだ検討したいところはありますが、最悪の事態に対応する準備が必要だということは理解できました。
都市沈黙船の研究班に南沢地区沈黙船のシミュレーションをさせましょう。これは至急行われる必要があると思います。
こうしている間にも女王感染者の少女が車にはねられて死んでしまう可能性だってあるのですから。高野さんさ、ありがとう。また質問しますので着席してくださって結構です。
Thanks to a push from one of my backers, things were decided without too much of a problem. It took me almost all day to explain it to them, but it took only a short time to come to a decision. Nobody criticized, ridiculed, or tried to reject my grandfather's articles out of hand. The files they're all reading today are the very same shameful articles those haughty authorities left their footprints on as they trampled them in my grandfather's heart. They aren't ridiculing the articles, they're reading what was once rejected. Something big at a glance, but in this moment my grandfather's research is being recognized for the first time. My heart is filled with satisfaction to see people discussing amongst each other while pointing at my grandfather's files and raising them as proof. I've worked so hard for this day. Grandpa in heaven, can you see this? Well, if you can see this, I hope you can't see what you're going to do next, because you won't like that. That was This one. So that was number 8. Number 9 is on screen 4. The gathering place inside of the Fude Shrine is in fact the headquarters of the Onigufuchi Guardians. Normally a shrine should be a calm and quiet place. There are anti-dam signs everywhere, making it obvious what the location has become. Over 30 members of the Guardians here at the moment are having a heated conversation about their plans for the future. Although this meeting place is on the Fude family's property, it's a community facility, so it closes at 9 p.m. Of course, sometimes the discussion gets so heated that it goes past closing time, but meetings are supposed to end by 9. Discussion ends early, they usually chit-chat until that time. That's what usually happens. Of course, they mostly talk about the dam even when they chit-chat. Talk about someone's mistreatment at the government office, or someone getting arrested unjustly, or complain that people at the dam construction site are too violent. Since it's idle chatter, the topics are slightly emotional, and because of that, there's a good amount of bad-mouthing the Hojos.
回覧本捨てちゃったとか言い出すんだよ。普通に考えてそんなことするかね。
あそこの奥さんはさ、ちょっとこの間もさ、ゴミ置き場で牧野さんとこのばあさんとすんげえ口論してて。
だいたいなんていうかね、本当に粗暴だよね、あそこ。理性がないというか。ああ、お前さんは地元説明会の時を見てないのかい？ありゃすごかったよ。なあ、あそこまで言うからにゃ、もう村にはおれんよ。さっさと出てけばいいのにさ。金がもらえないのどうのこうの。朝飯行ったらありゃしないね。
いや理性のなさで言ったら、あそこの奥さんも相当なもんだよ。
それでやっぱり遺伝なのかしら。あそこのお嬢さん、買い物によく見かけるんで挨拶するんだけど、向こうから挨拶は絶対に返さないのよ。だから私たちバカバカしくなっちゃって、以来見かけても知らないふりしてんだから。
それ言ったら、あそこの坊主もいつも暗そうな顔してるよな。
By now, the Hojo family has become the enemy of the whole village. Bad-mouthing the Hojo family is the greatest shared topic that anyone could easily contribute to. If he'd known how powerful the three families were, especially the Sonozaki family, if he had known Oryo-san's character, he wouldn't have said the things he did. The Hojo couple are residents here. Though they were never very enthusiastic about the council activities, they should have known the kind of person Oryo-san is. Could have imagined just what would happen to him if he talked about her that way. Yet he let his anger take over and voice his unpleasant feelings. So most people think the Hojo family brought their isolation upon themselves. If they want to negotiate with the government regarding the move, they should have done so privately. He was foolish enough to express himself at a public gathering like that. Not too many sympathize with the Hojo family. Ever since the big fight at the explanatory meeting, the Sonozaki families looked at the Hojo family as their enemy, and started to go after them. That caused the other Pro-Dam families to go quiet, fearing that they'd be made into scapegoats too. Samus' steal sleep? Add that to the wiki. Those who wanted to leave were bitterly forced to give up, even though those people started criticizing the Hojo couple, saying they could have gotten their compensation to leave if those two hadn't picked that reckless fight. Both the anti-dam and pro-dam people hate the Hojos now, and the families become even more isolated. Moreover, the Hojos are both very aggressive. Should have stayed quiet at least until things settled down, but they didn't. That alienated the handful of people who took pity on them as well. Now nobody says anything to them. All that was immediately obvious by listening to the foul talk here and there at the gathering place. Rika always helps out by putting the teacups away, so I'm sure she hears what they say as well. One of the Hojo family members their bad mouthing is Rika's friend, Sadako-chan. First think about what Rika feels while hearing that. As priestess of the Fude Shrine, should I let this continue? Oishiro-sama is a god who makes peace between enemies. Humans and demons fought. Oishiro-sama descended from heaven and mediated between both sides. The next character that appears visibly, their first line is this: "You're skilled, you can go both ways, but I'm not that skilled." As the caretaker of the shrine, I must do something before it goes too far. Sitting next to Oryo-san, who is spitefully disparaging the Hojo family. I'm glad she wasn't the first one to come out. So I don't know how I feel about her saying that she's skilled enough to go both ways and then talking about ass. The elderly people cheer her on as they listen to her speak. If I barge in now, I have a feeling it won't be a peaceful conversation. I have to make up my mind. Priestess of the Furude Shrine, also for the sake of Rika's friend Sadako-chan.
北条さんの悪口を言うのはそろそろこれくらいにしませんかね。
なんね、何倍よりおるんかいな。
いや、北条さんもそんな悪気はなかったと思うんだが、あまりいつまでも尾を引くのはかわいそうだと。
しゃらしいね。おめあれを聞いちゃどんなすったらんわんとね。なあ、おしゃらしい。しゃらしいしゃらしい。
Oryo-san is the head of the Sonozaki family, the heir to the demons. She never forgives anyone who stands against her, so there's no way she would even listen to what I'm trying to say. Oryo-san and the others became furious and refused to listen to me. I also mentioned that the dam construction plan will be cancelled soon, so that they should calm down already. I said that because the staff at the Irie clinic told me that the government is putting some kind of pressure on the Ministry of Construction. They're thinking that I'm being an opportunist. Soon criticism of me began to circulate the room. For that I realized I may have become branded as a fence-sitter. The demons are willing to listen, there's a chance to make peace. How can I make peace with people who refuse to listen? I destroyed their mood. I just have to give up and shut my mouth. And I felt a little hand on my back. Oh, Rika, why do you have to be the one who goes both ways? Actually, I guess you're not skilled enough to go both ways.
もう遅い時間だから家に戻っていなさい。
私たちがいくら努力しても届かない。
Rika looked into the distance while she spoke.
このよどみ切った村の悪兵は、そのよどみに住まう私たちにはどうしようもないのかもしれない。でも、希望をなくすものか。今にきっとこいつらを打ち破ってくれる人がやってくる。今にきっと。
Her eyes shone as if seeing a future that only the maiden of the Furude Shrine could see. And a quote that only the maiden of the Furude Shrine could say. I knew from that point who was going to be, because there's only one person in that entire scene who had an image. Okay, which one was that? That was Depression. Okay, we finished Depression, we've graduated from Depression. Okay, where's number 10? Thank you. Okay, page 2. Yeah, I've slowly been trying to ban bots, but there's like 2 million bots Commander Root does. So I'll run it for like a couple hours and then I'll stop it and start again. I did some tests, and if you run it and stop it and then restart it, it will pick up where it's left off. That being said, I have noticed that like I'll start it, stop it, and then like if I don't run it overnight and start it the next morning, because like I shut down my computer, yeah, I haven't done it with closing my browser, but I've closed the tab that it was running in. But what I have noticed is that sometimes, like, if you only run it for like a couple hours and, like, let's say it blocks, 100,000 bots, sometimes it'll find 100,000 bots by the next day, so... Yeah, so we've graduated from depression to murder and dismemberment. This is from early summer 1979. Mike Tyson decided to visit the village. A loud noise snapped everyone out of it. Someone dropped the shovel he was holding. The shovel was smeared with reddish-black blood. And not just the shovel, all 6 construction workers' clothes were blood-soaked too. One of them cried out to the silent dead body of the manager, which was drenched in blood. Why do you sound like his ghost? Are we haunting him? Is this a reverse haunting where you just, like, make scary noises at the dead body? The fight had started after the manager yelled at them for drinking beer inside the office. There were no drinking and no smoking signs everywhere. The manager harshly scolded anyone who broke that rule. I like the manager so far. So it was the 6 workers' fault for disobeying. They drank because they were stressed out by the anti-dam protesters. They said to provoke the manager, told him to step out. The others went along. Construction workers toiled hard and long hours, so they instigated the fight with the manager to release their stress. They expected to just curse at each other and end up in a wrestling match, but things escalated. To put it more accurately, the manager exploded all of a sudden. The manager had to deal with the residents' protests as well, so he was under just as much pressure, maybe even more. But how he changed was not normal. The manager was calm at first, but he gradually became more aggressive, like he transformed into someone completely different. It was like he was possessed by something evil. The man who instigated the fight sobered up when they saw his behavior. Then the manager picked up a shovel that was nearby and tried to smash his opponent's head in with it. He managed to avoid the hit, but if he didn't, his head would have surely been split open. The manager kept pounding on him with the shovel, even as he frantically tried to avoid the hits. By this time, the workers realized this was beyond a simple fight. They tried to hold the manager down. The manager turned on them with the shovel, too. One of the men tried to protect himself by crossing his arms above his head. There's no way he could have blocked a shovel swung with such force. Blood spurted out and the man groaned in pain. By this time, the 6 men had realized the manager was not his usual self. The manager would probably try to bash in their brains without hesitation. A shovel knight, too? Their opponent was using a shovel as a weapon. They had to find some kind of weapon, too. One of them grabbed a huge hammer. I just think they're the Avengers. You got Thor now with his hammer. Then the others realized they might need to find something as well. To restrain the manager in that condition, it was better to arm themselves. Marvel, please pick this up as like your next project. It didn't take that long for the madness to infect 6 workers. It was only a matter of time before they went from restraining him to lynching him. By the time they realized what happened, the manager was already a lump of meat. The best kind of meat. His face was swollen, shreds of skin had been torn off, and his muscles and skull were visible too. Obviously, he was quite dead. Uncle Thanos' Fantastic Funhouse. It's the kind of funhouse where at the end you're just like, I don't feel so good. The leader of the Sixth, the one who instigated the fight, tried to bring the rest to his side, but nobody replied. So the leader became frustrated. He was the one who started the fight. The rest simply joined in. He was the main perpetrator. Maybe that was why he was feeling so exasperated, since that he was the one at fault.
やっちまったもんは仕方ねえだろ。俺たちな、もう殺人犯なんだよ。覚悟を決めるんだよ。
まさかおめえら自首して懲役食らいてえなんて思ってんじゃねえだろうな。冗談じゃねえよ。無所なんかこの年で言ってられっかよ。
隠すんだよ。こいつの死体を隠してすっとぼけるしかねえんだ。
Some of them knew he was on probation for an assault incident once before. If he got in trouble with the law again, the punishment would be more severe than they could imagine. So I was trying desperately to find a way out. He was alone with the manager's body, then he wouldn't have behaved this way. All he would have to do is hide the manager's body and pretend nothing happened. There were 6 of them, including him. They were partners in crime and witnesses, too. Sounds like the evil Dr. Seuss book. They were partners in crime and witnesses, too. After they killed the man, they didn't know what to do. Even one of them turned himself in out of guilt. He'd be in big trouble.
でも死体なんか隠したってバレるよいずれ
Will we hide him in the ground? Will we hide him all around?
それより正当防衛ってことでちゃんと主張してその過剰防衛くらいで勘弁してもらえねえかな
甘ったれたこと言ってんじゃねえ実際に殺しちまったんだぞ過剰防衛で済むかよもう取り返しのつかないところまでやっちまったんだぞバカ野郎
でもよ、どう返したって監督がいなくなったのは明日の朝にはバレちまうんだ。
Sherb looked on with a gleeful smile, for she knew it would be her best meal in a while. Hi, Candy, how's it going?
どうしようもねえよ。
Thank you for the hydrate. Doing well, doing well. He slapped the other man in the face. The leader had such an evil look in his eyes.
いいかボケども俺たちはな殺人犯なんだ殺人犯グズグズ言ってりゃ5年6年くらい込まれちまうんだよ俺らの中に一人裏切り者がおってみろ全員が捕まっちまうんだよ懲役をなめんなどうせ捕まる覚悟なっちゅうんなら死ぬ気で逃げまくってるんだ年貢の納め時になったら好きなだけ覚悟決めりゃいいんだ
Savage turned more and more demonic. It's the same expression the manager had just a few minutes before. Was he possessed by the same thing that possessed the manager? 5 men started to think that way. Now that they considered it, all the villagers in the Antidam protest had the same expression in their faces too. The real name of Hinamizawa was Onikafuchi Village. People said that wicked demons lived here, and they sometimes possessed people. Men couldn't help but recall the exaggerated story often told by the demonstrators. The manager swung the shovel after his expression changed to that demonic one. There's no guarantee this man wouldn't do the same. In fact, he was still squeezing the hammer in his hand, glaring at everyone and threatening them. Someone suggested surrendering, he'd probably smash their head in with it.
そうだ裏切り者を出さんためにないいことを思いついたわ死体も隠しやすくなって一石二鳥だぞ
どんな手だい
They all wanted to object to the idea. Killing him was a serious crime itself. Dismembering the body would be too much. If anyone objected, he'd be killed on the spot, so no one said anything. I want a series of, like, hang in there kitty posters, but it's like people committing murder. It's like teamwork. And they're just chopping up the body or like throwing it in the dumpster together. Hide it responsibly is probably not the thing to say when you're drunk. Don't forget to recycle. Communication is important and just people screaming at each other. Five men were all taken in by his ghastly face. They could even feel the fear of the Onigafuchi demons creep up their backs. Alright, we've done the first, what was that? This one? 10. Let's save. We're like 20% done this. I wish it had something other than this. It's like really hard to tell if I've actually like saved over this or not, or like how far I am. I just have to remember at what point I'm at. Okay, number 11 is on screen 1, bottom left-hand corner. The first sacrifice. I was half asleep, so I didn't even hear the phone ringing nearby. After a while, I finally realized the phone was ringing. A ringing phone means there's some kind of an emergency. It's 2 in the morning. Who would even call me at this time of night? It's Takano-san. She never called me for a personal reason. The Institute, she's ranked just below me, so she's basically responsible for running it. So for her to call me this late at night, it must be an emergency. I initially thought that she'd abducted someone. The man had already been moved to the research area in the clinic's basement. Having been tied down to the examination table, he struggled against its restraints, more as though he's deranged than actually resisting. Can't even understand what he's saying. He sounds angry, sorrowful, like a child throwing a tantrum all at once. It's obvious that he's not in the right state of mind. One of the staff with the white gown got the anesthesia ready. Even a normal person would struggle against a restraining table in this suspicious room. This man's behavior is at an abnormal level. I'm sure Okanagi and his son and his friends from the Mountain Dogs are the ones who captured him. Capturing a man in this state of mind couldn't have been an easy task. According to Takano, she ran into this patient on her way home from the clinic by accident. She brought him back here, tested him, and the result came back positive. Of course, I have no intention of just believing what she was telling me. There's no question that this man's at the terminal stage. A live specimen is exactly what we need to research the syndrome. There's something wrapped in a bloody newspaper on a tray nearby. Looking at the blood-drenched paper, I can only imagine there's something gruesome inside of it. Yet Takano-san looked like she wanted to surprise me with something interesting. It's a bloody right arm. I don't know, I feel like it could still be suspicious. Are they pooping for a long time? Is there water coming out from under the door? The man on the table still has his. This right arm doesn't belong to him. But who does it belong to? He's looking at things like this as a doctor. The horrible cross-section makes me want to look away. It wasn't done according to a medically acceptable method, that's for sure. It was obviously done out of cruelty.
状況から考えて、この男が切り取ったものと考えていいでしょうね。
つまり彼は近隣で起こった何らかの事件の犯人ということですね。
At that point, there was no way of knowing who the right arm belonged to. Next morning, the dismembered murder of the damn construction site director was reported. They had mentioned that his right arm was still missing, so we learned who the arm belonged to.
この男、前科者だそうで、しかもその上、執行猶予期間中だとか。にもかかわらず、それで殺人の発覚を恐れて遺体を隠そうと思ったのでしょうね。
状況にもよるでしょうが、懲役数年で済むというものではなさそうですね。
入江所長もこんな社会のクズが相手なら解剖に躊躇はないのでは？
社会のクズがさらに犯罪を重ね、さらにその上ひなみ沢症候群で凶暴化したのか、それとも前科を悔いる善良な小市民がひなみ沢症候群で凶暴化して罪を犯したのか。前者ならともかく後者ならば彼には何の罪もありませんよ。
But Hinamizawa syndrome is so terrifying. Can't tell if the syndrome is the cause of the crime or if it's simply a problem of human nature. What causes a defect of human nature in the first place? That's precisely Irie's area of research. Hate the crime, not the criminal. Can criminals be corrected by punishing them with imprisonment? A person commits a crime because of a mental disorder, but then gets treatment. He is corrected. In other words, there are no crimes in this world, only patients awaiting treatment, without anyone else being able to understand them. In medieval times, patients with mental disorders were said to be possessed by demons. They were either confined or killed. Centuries after, they were finally acknowledged as mentally ill people who needed treatment. Perception can change with time. If they are called criminals now, maybe after several centuries, those criminals will be acknowledged as patients who are entitled to appropriate treatment. Yeah, the doggo is howling because he wants to play with the cat. He's actually not a husky, he's a Malamute, but basically the same temperament. He's just bigger. Explaining crimes through illness instead of malice. That's my life's work. Hinamizawa syndrome is a strange disease that can support my theory. Yeah, no problem, we get that all the time. And then we also get the kids who, like, run up to us in like, the pet store. They're like, is he a German Shepherd? And we're like, no, kid. We had that happen once. There was a kid who was like, I don't know, like 7-ish, 8-ish, something like that. To solve those mysteries, I need a medical sacrifice. It's an extremely sinful thing to do, but there's no way to unravel this without it. Irritates who's authorized to take such drastic measures if necessary. But I was asked about it so many times when I accepted the position of director. Finally, the opportunity is here. It will be the first step for research on this strange disease. Even now, I'm a little hesitant. I've opened up human bodies in many surgeries. What I'll be doing on this man is something very similar, also something that's very different. What I did before was part of treatment. I did it to save the patient's lives. I did it so that the patients could have a better future. What I'm trying to do here isn't treatment. He will die at the end of it. His death will be far from humane. I'm going to violate nature and force him to stay alive while I open up his living brain.
入江所長、聞いてらっしゃいます？
ああ、すみません。もう一度お願いします。
解剖計画書を提出し、東京に応援を要請した方が良いかと思います。何しろ、単に生きてるだけでなく、末期症状を起こしている大変貴重な検体ですもの。慎重な解剖が求められますわね。
そうですね。おっしゃる通りです。そのようにしましょう。
それまでに数日の猶予があると思います。
I heard he did well in that last test, so hopefully this test goes well too.
そこで麻酔を解いていくつかの反応実験をしてみたいのですが。
危険ではありませんか？たとえ拘束を解かなくても何が起こるかわかりませんよ。
We'd call it reading comprehension.
ようやく手に入った検体なんですもの。ただ脳を覗くだけじゃもったいないですわ。
Kano-san's unusual cheerfulness made me feel odd. Maybe her reaction is normal. Maybe I'm the one who's not reacting normally in this situation. I'm here only for the research. Just answer the first question by saying this. It's only rude to pull it out in front of family if you didn't close that incognito tab. That's when you don't want it out in public. I should have been excited to have the opportunity to perform our first live dissection. Okay, yeah. Okay. I'm still hesitant. How can I call myself a researcher? Researchers of the past were brave enough to cross the line, and that's how they accomplish many things. I've seen many brains. I've operated on them. Cheerio. I've lost some patients too, but I never thought anything of it because I knew I did the right thing. Even when my hard work was denied afterwards. Came to think of that, I just need to advance the field of medicine to ensure their deaths weren't wasted. That's the true form of those advancing the field of medicine. I think he's under your desk. Yet why was my heart tormented so much just by changing the name from treatment to dissection? I mean, I'm not man enough to emulate those great men of the past to open the doors to new medicine, but I don't have the power to develop new advances myself. Of course not.
お休みのところを無理に起こしてしまったので、ご気分が優れませんのかしら?
Takano's pretending to be concerned about me, but she knows. She knows I'm still hesitating. She's telling me that I should be ashamed as a researcher for feeling that way. I shook my head to clear it of sleepiness. Remember the resolve that brought me here to this day. I already have blood on my hands, but if I stop now, their lives will be wasted. Those who shed their blood can only rest in peace once they've become the cornerstones of great research. I shook my head once more and reminded myself that I'm a researcher.
考え事をしていただけです。高野さんは東京との調整をお願いいたします。日程が決まりましたら教えてください。
ええ、了解いたしましたわ。眠気も吹っ飛んでしまいますわね。
Least I can do is my best, so this life won't be wasted. If he bleeds, I can't waste even a drop of his blood. For scolding my staff for their indiscretion of discussing the dissection with such excitement, I returned to my office. Okay, so we're looking for number 12. Where's number 12? Screen 3. This one, yes. I don't know what to say. I want to say something, but I can't think of the right words. I can only sigh.
大石さん、探したんすよ。課長から手配写真の。
静かにせい。ここは騒ぐ部屋ではないぞ。
As Kumagai barged into the room, the old coroner quickly snapped back at him.
すみません。ですね。課長が容疑者の手配写真について。
ああ、それ小宮山君に相談してくれませんかね。ちょいと私じい様と話がありまして、すぐに上がりますと上に言っといてください。
わかりました。
Kumagai ran into the autopsy room with the same haste he entered in.
男だの。
おやっさんだったらやかましいって言って原稿。
お前さんも少し上に戻った方がいいぞい。ここの空気は慣れんやつには合わん。
そうですね。あんまりサボってると私もげんこつを食らっちまいそうです。
獅子骨界隈じゃチンピラも避けて通るお前さんをツモの切り方が悪いとげんこつを食らわせてきたのは後にも先にもこいつだけだったの。
容赦のない人だったな。本当の親父よりげんこつもらった気がしますよ。
本当も嘘もないわい。お前さんが本当の親父だと信じてたならこいつも本当の親父だ。
My real father passed away in Nagoya. He was unlucky. If he wasn't given the order to move to a plant in Nagoya, he wouldn't have died in an air raid. Would have rode out another half year or so, and the war would have been over. I was sad, of course. I was grown up to know by then that I didn't cry into the ground like my mother did. People feel sadness in different ways. For some people, it comes out all at once as an overwhelming wave. Others feel sadness gradually, over a long period of time. I think I was the latter. He was alive, I only thought of him as annoying. In my mind, I even cursed him with questions about why he'd avoid the draft. I thought my feelings towards him would always be the same. Then the war ended. As I saw families and friends being reunited with the joy that came home from being at the front, it finally happened. I grieved for my father's death. Japan was filled with people who were sad and full of despair. I knew I wasn't the only one whose life ended up that way. I remember I was very, very heartbroken. After the war, the nation completely changed. As a policeman, the environment I worked in went through sudden changes. In order to forget my sorrow, the only thing I could do was devote myself to my work.
私はいろんな取り締まりをやらされてましたね。食料とか生活必需品を非合法な手段で買い込む人たちをよく検挙したもんです。そりゃあもうゾロゾロ引っかかりましたっけ。僕らのあたりは物が豊かで、そういった物を手に入れるのにかなり都合が良かったそうなんですよ。
After the war, Japan faced a chronic shortage in food supply. To those ends, the nation instituted a food rationing program by signing the Food Control Act. The rations the government provided weren't even close to being enough to feed families. Therefore, people had no choice other than buying food and supplies on the black market. The government hardly had enough food for rations, but there was somehow plenty on the black market. The dealers there sold it at outrageous prices, and some of them became quite wealthy. The Sonozaki family made their money through that black market. That's another story. The government didn't bother arresting those dealers. With their money, they were able to buy off the top members of the police department. Instead, they decided to go after the people buying the goods, and even confiscate the rice they bought by selling everything they owned. I remember that. Wasn't there a prosecutor who starved himself to death? There was. The prosecutor vowed not to eat illegal rice, starved to death in 1947. That was horrible. The public prosecutor proved to himself that people can survive by adhering to the law. That prosecutor had grown tired of the government charging people with doing whatever they could do to survive. He proclaimed that he was never going to buy black market rice again. In 1947, he starved to death. He was only in his mid-30s. The law prohibited people from buying black market rice. It's the only way to survive. In that case, the Food Control Act was a bad law? The death of the prosecutor was seen as a desperate message to the government about the unjustness of that law. Again, I don't know why some of these don't have voicing, but as I've looked online, it's actually a common thing that other people have. Round up people with bags of rice and line them up at a temporary inspection point next to the station. It's like a military tribunal. Inspected their bags and confiscated everything they brought back at the black market. Yeah, and there we go, he has his voice again. For one sentence. They sold everything they owned to buy the rice. They pleaded that if we confiscated the rice, how would they feed their starving children? Yet they forbade you from going up to the cellars, so it was absolutely unfair from the view of the people. Everyone was on edge. They heard a police inspection was set up at the next station, they'd jump off the train and run. We were aware of these people, so we set up several officers near jump-off spots in order to capture them. I remember chasing after women carrying several kilos of rice on them. That was when I first met the old man. I was chasing a man who was running away from the inspection point. There's no way for him to run with a heavy bag of rice on him, so either he was getting arrested with illegal rice or escaped by ditching the rice he bought by selling all of his belongings. In other words, if a person is being chased by the police, the person can't provide his family any rice to eat. Of course, I felt guilty about that. I knew people had to buy the rice to survive. We had a tacit agreement to let those who ditched the rice and ran get away. I always thought the same thing as I chased them. Please throw it away. I didn't want to catch him. I didn't want to hear him crying and pleading in distress. It was then that the old man showed up. He looked exactly like my dead father, and I was dumbfounded. All of a sudden, he punched me in the head. If a father disciplines you as a child, you lower your head in apology. I was happy to see my father alive so that I couldn't hold all my joy in. The old man said, "Let him go." When I heard his voice, I realized he wasn't my father, so I thought I'd arrest him for assaulting a policeman. The young man like me who had barely grown any hairs yet was no match for an older man used to fighting.
まあ、そこで小づいただけじゃなく、男の器量もきっちりと見せられたのがこいつの大したところだったの。今時じゃすっかり珍しくなっちまった。古き良き時代の生き残りじゃった。
Despite my age, I still needed a father. I needed someone to look up to. Tell me what makes a man a man. When I think about it, I really did have two fathers. The old man was a father, a brother, and my best friend. Now here he lies with his head, body, arms, and legs all dismembered. His right arm hasn't been found. He taught me how to be a man, how to enjoy alcohol, how to play mahjong. And with that right arm, he gave me a good beating when I did something wrong. That right arm is still missing.
ねえ、もちろんついています。おやつさんの右腕ももちろん取り返しますし、この借りもきっちり返します。
They're running Hinamizawa from the shadows, inciting this collective crime they call the dam protests, the Sonozaki family. I declare war within myself. I already know who my enemy is. Except he was wrong. He was wrong about who killed his friend. Okay, that was 12. 13 is this one, yes.
フルデさん、お待たせしました。今、最後の検査を終えたところです。もうすぐ戻
So I think we're doing this in the true chronological order.
娘が村のために役に立てばいいのですが。
とんでもない。リカさんの協力は村を救うことにもなります。おかげでようやく治療方法にも目処がついてきたところです。仕組みはまだ調べているところですが、リカさんの存在がやはり村人にとってとても大切なものであることが分かってきました。レベルの進んでしまった一般感染者は自力ではそのレベルを下げて症状を安定させるのが非常に困難です。ですが、女王感染者に接近することで脳内にある種の物質が作られることが分かっています。その物質には鎮静効果があり、また進んでしまった症状のレベルを抑え回復させる力もあるようなのです。この物質を処方できるようになれば治療の強力な決め手となるでしょう。
そうですか。リカにそのような力が。
驚かれるには値しないのでは。フルデの巫女には荒れた心、鬼を鎮める神追力があると代々伝えられているんではありませんでしたっけ。私たちが解明しなくても村の数百年にわたる歴史はすでにそれを知っていたわけですわ。
そうですね。大昔の方の聡明さは時に現代医学から見ても感心させられます。
みー、検査が終わったのです。
リカ、大変だったな。疲れただろ。これで自動販売機でジュースを買ってきなさい。
みー、血をいっぱい抜かれたから補給なのです。
Rika took the 100 yen coin that was offered to her and ran out into the hallway.
リカさんの協力のおかげです。彼女が献身的に協力に応じてくれなければこれほどまでに研究が進むことはありませんでした。
リカは自分の友達もその病気にかかっているということを気にしていて、友達のためにも協力したいと常に言っていました。どうか先生方、リカの心意気を汲んでやってください。
もちろんです。毎週日曜日に貴重な時間を割いていただいているのです。必ずや成果にしてみせます。今後もリカさんに過酷な実験を強いることがあると思いますが、どうかお許しいただければと思います。
彼女に危害を加えることは絶対にありませんわ。彼女はとてもとても大切な身なのです。何しろお社様の生まれ変わりなんですから。
大昔の村人はどのようにしてこの病気のことを知り、フルデ家にその女王の血が流れていることを知ったのやら、ご先祖様たちにはつくづく頭が下がります。
それで実はまた辛いご協力をお願いしなくてはなりません。彼女の脳脊髄液の採取のご許可をいただきたいのです。また場合によっては彼女の頭蓋に線香を開け直接頭部の中を検査させていただくこと。
頭蓋骨に穴 ですか？
もちろん安全性には最大限注意します。リカさんはたった一人しかいない女王感染者なのです。間違っても危害を加えることがないよう、私どもで最も安全な方法を模索した上で提案させていただいています。
もちろんリカちゃんは女の子ですもの。頭部先行周辺の頭髪には気を使いますので、丸坊主にしてしまうようなことはありません。ただ経過を慎重に見るためにしばらく入院をしてもらうことになりますが。
もちろんその間面会謝絶ということはありません。
Thank you for the stretch. See if the cat has knocked the camera. Oh, no. Oh, speaking of cat, hi cat, you want to come stretch with me?
Stretch with cat.
Cat stretch.
Bonus stretch.
Stretch with me. Hmm? Why are you purring? Why do you like this, weirdo? Hmm? 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 Okay. There you go.
Give me the cat. Cheerio. First time.
You didn't want to do that one together? You didn't want to do that one together?
No, because we did the second one. And it'll take us 500 years if we both of them. And if you want to.
Yeah, I do. Make your character.
I did it.
Is that all you've done in it? Is that all you've done? Okay, do you like the tutorial? It's the kind of one where I can join. Alright. Did you want to come up on my lap, bud? Hmm? There you go. Hi, buddy.
検査にもぜひ立ち会ってください。
Just don't hop up on my desk and take 10,000 screenshots.
お父さんが身近におられた方がリカさんも安心するでしょ
う。その検査はどうしても必要なもので、
Where are you going, bud?
絶対に安全なものなのですか？
You want to go back around, okay. In purr, though. He's trying to come back around.
You want me?
He is interesting. Yeah. So we were on like a short vacation. So he was staying with my parents for like a week and a half. In that time, what did he do? He would jump up on the table. He would bat around like the playing cards. He would jump over. There's like a gate that they put up to try and keep him in his one room at night, and he would jump over that. He would knock over his water dish and then like roll in the water.
脳脊髄液の採取も頭蓋の潜行も どちらも 100% の安全を保証することはできません。常に 1% の危険があります。また
And like you know the door stoppers like on the back of the door so it doesn't slam into the wall, and like you can hit it and it goes like boing. He loves playing with those. They like unscrewed it from the wall because he would play with it only at like 3 a.m.
いくら重要な検査といえども、ご家族の同意なしには
And if the dog's not here and he has free reign of the house, he'll like come and he'll like run around. He'll follow us everywhere. If you're like sleeping, he'll like sit on your face or try and walk under your pillow. If you turn on like your phone, if he sees the light that you're awake, he'll come and bother you.
リカちゃんには実はもう同じ話をしています。
And man, he sheds so much.
リカはなんと
If you look at him, it looks like he doesn't have much hair. It looks like he has very thin hair because you can see like down onto his skin, and then like you brush him and it just keeps coming forever.
自分は構わないと、それはもうあっけらかんと。
リカさんには危険や苦痛が伴う可能性があることをもちですが、やはり保護者の方の承
Yeah,
諾をい
the
ただ
dog
か
just
な
had
け
a
ればいけま
bath,
せ
so
ん。
like all his hair is like ready to come out. I brushed him multiple times today. Like there's like a cotton ball the size of my head that I pulled out of him today alone.
リカは自分のことを本当にお社様の生まれ変わりだと信じている時があります。だから村人のために自分の身を捧げるのが自分の義務だと思っているところがあるのかもしれません。
立派なお子さんだと思います。
There's a picture somewhere where we have taken the fluff of him and shaped it into a dog and put it next to him, and he looks very confused.
一応家内とも相談させてください。納得はしてくれているのですが、やはりことがことなので話をしないわけにもいかない。
And it's like the size of like a plush, it's like arm length, forearm length.
ご家族の同意は不可欠だと思います。よくご相談なさってください。
その検査は病気の根絶のために重要な意味があるのですね。
はい。ひなみ沢症候群のベールを剥ぐ決定的なものに。
決定的なものの第一歩にですわね。
すでにご説明しており
Cat, you got hair on my monitor.
万一のことがあった場合、感染コミュニティに致命的な崩壊をもたらす危険性が予見されています。平たく申し上げると、村人全員が突如として末期発症を起こす可能性もあるということです。
Oh, nice. Have you decided on what character you're playing?
急性発症の平均から見て、女王感染者死亡から48時間以内に全感染者が末期発症を起こします。
And they're both like his fur is like that light orangey red, and the other dog's is white. So like I'm wearing a black shirt with black shorts. I can see so much hair on my shirt right now.
それだけは絶対に防がなくては。
Sorcerer tiefling. I love sorcerers.
リカが死ぬようなことがあれば。
Wild mage sorcerers are probably one of my favorite magic users.
はい。それを防ぐのも私たちの役目です。そのために危険を冒さなければならないのはとても皮肉なことですが。
I can tell when the cat's been like up on my desk because I've got like the noise canceling foam, and I can just see it's like covered in hair if he's like been brushing against it.
入江先生、必ずその検査を
I can see it floating around.
いただけますか。
ですから医学には 100% や絶対などという。
I see.
ええ。
Yuria answered with a nod, interrupting Takono's vague
私、入江
response.
京介が 命をかけて必ずやリカさんを救います。村人も救います。絶対にです。
わかりました。家内と相談させてください。その上で後日改めてお返事させていただきます。
はい、よろしくお願いいたします。
It's never a good sign when you like leave the doctor's office and maniacal laughter is heard after that. Eureka and her father laughed. Takano started to laugh.
何か愉快なことでも。
いえいえ。患者とご家族から律儀に事前承諾を取られていたのがなんだかおかしくって。
リカさんには本来無用の苦痛を強いています。それくらいは最低限の礼儀だと思いまして。
Yeah, there's a couple ways you can do your character stats. What your DM probably did, it's there's just like no numbers or whatever it is, like 18, 16, 16, 14, 10, 8 or something like that. There's sets of no numbers that are good for people doing their first time. After that, there's like a point-based system where it's like you get so many points. Like if you ever played one of those games where you have like starting stats and you can just like, you know, plus and minus and you have a maximum number of points, it's basically that. And then the original way was you rolled for it, and the rolling could mean... Okay. Oh, 5 is awful. And then, yeah, then the original is you roll for it. And rolling, it's just the luck of the dice. I've had characters that are, like, all their stats are stupid good, or they're all stupid bad.
去年の男も正常な状態にあれば事前承諾を取りたかったところです。
入江所長は
And then also depending on how brutal you want to go, you can either roll all of the numbers individually and then you get your array like you have there, the 17, 15, 13, so on, and then you can assign it. Or you can just be like, okay, I'm rolling for strength now. Okay, my strength is 7, that's great. I'd planned on making a tank. Guess not anymore. This type of teasing was normal for Takano, but maybe she'd gone a little too far. Irie made it clear how displeased he was to hear that.
南沢症候群の研究は生きた人間を研究対象とすることでのみ進められる。それが分かってなお、あなたはこの研究を進めることに罪の意識。
My favorite thing has been making just dumb characters for like single sessions where it's like the campaign's only gonna last one, you know, like 3-hour session and you're gone. So I made a character once called Bat Orc the Compassionate, and he was a half orc, and he multi-classed. He was part what was he? Part paladin, part rogue, I think. And his thing was he was like working for like a church, but he was like not working by the rules. He was like, you know, going through like seedy underground channels and stuff. And or maybe he was half barbarian, half rogue. And I think he was half barbarian, half rogue. Or no, because he was working with the church. No, it had to be a paladin, half rogue. And he would just like beat like the living tar out of people, and then they'd be like, but Bat, I thought you were Bat Orc the Compassionate, where's the compassion? And that was just the name of his weapon. So then he would hit them more with his weapon. Internet, I saw a little blip there. You doing alright? Okay, internet looks like it's fine. So yeah, just dumb characters like that. Can't remember what I made him for. I think it was my brother was the DM, and I think he made like it was a one-off where we were the security detail for a wedding, And it was just like one of those ones where, like, okay, you know, everything that goes wrong on a wedding day, like, we had to deal with. So, like, one of the things that happened during that was, you know, when the priest was like, does anyone object to this marriage? And someone stood up to object, like a former lover or something, or one of the people's parents. And the rogue's just like, I just shoot him. Critical hit killed the guy, and like, okay, do we have any more objections?
殺人であれ、解剖であれ、相手に死を強いる点で変わりません。私たちはその罪を受け止めてなお、その死を
There were no more objections.
最大限の努力と研究を重ねなくてはなりません。
ご高説ですわね。では入江所長、あなたはこれまで間違いなく非合法とされる実験を行う際、何度の事前承諾を取られたというんですの
Okay, that sounds like it could be fun. You didn't think Takano knew about that.
人の罪は脳の疾患によるものという独りよがりで、一体何人の患者が事前承諾なく。
Yeah, like especially if you have like some half the group's new people, it'd be a good way to just make sure that people like it. And that you like your character. I've had people who make a character that they think will be fun, and then like actually get into like playing them, and they're like, actually this character's awful.
常識は時代で変わる。当時は
And yes, have a wonderful breakfast,
説明することなどなかったし、事前承諾なんて大したものではなかった。だから当時のことは気にしなくていいんじゃないですかしら。今は倫理上問題があっても。
Actually, I was talking before about the one where you like add points to stuff and you can take it away. It's like when you're building a new character in The Sims and you have like whatever it is, like your outgoing, your cleanliness, your like all of those, and you add points to it. It's exactly like that, except you can go negative. You can go backwards and make them worse.
でもそれに罪を感じているから、リカちゃんやあの男にさえも事前承諾が取りたかった。
それは誤解です。
Yeah, -3 decks, that'll be fun.
そもそも治療と解剖では患者。
I mean, it could be worse. I'm just imagining right now if you were playing like a fighter or someone who wears heavy armor, and then it makes it even worse.
ねえ坊や、あなたが欲しいのは事前承諾という名の免罪符。そうでしょ？あなたが欲しいのは過去の罪をあがないたいという心を満たすだけ。
Yeah, and
そのためだけの
the latest version of D&D is much more balanced in that combat skills mean a lot less than like soft skills out of combat skills. So charisma should become quite useful.
なのに、だらだらと後悔しながら、あなたはいつまでも未練がましくこの世界で脳に関わっている。
It's definitely, from what I've seen, it's much nicer for new players to get into, because there's less. It's less technical than it used to be. That being said, I personally find combat much less enjoyable because they overly simplified combat. Yes, less technical. So, okay, so I assume you're playing 5th edition, just based on everything you've said. So in 5th edition, you have on your character sheet, you have the front page and you've got, like your skills, like your HP, your personality and flaws and whatever, your inventory, your attacks. Then you've got like the next page where it's like describe like your race, your class, your backstory. You'd have a page for like spells if you're a spellcaster. So you end up being like 3 to 4 pages or something like that, and that basically sticks throughout as you play, and unless you want like another page for inventory if you acquire a bunch of inventory and stuff. In 4th edition, by like level 3, you had 3 pages of attacks alone. And you hit like level, I don't know, level 10, and you have like 7 pages of attacks. Now, that made it cool because you had a bunch of stuff you could do, but it also gave a bunch of people like decision paralysis. So it'd come to their turn, they're like, I have 20 pages of stuff I can... No, not... I have 10 pages of stuff I can do. What do I want to do? But if you could get a group of people who, like, thought ahead of time, like, okay, on my turn, like, I'll do this, and if this happens, then I'll do this other thing, you could go through it pretty quickly. So yeah, so what they did with 5th edition is they took away all those different attacks. They made it simplified, especially for non-spellcasters. Spellcasters still have a decent amount of attacks, but people, like, if you're a fighter now, you basically just like hit with your weapon and that's it, and it's more, I guess, positioning. But in the other one, like, fighters had basically the same amount of attacks as spellcasters, because you had specialties like, oh, I'm going to like hit him with my shield, or like slash him with the knee to try and slow them down and stuff like that. Yeah, and then the new edition, it makes it better for people who not everyone likes combat, not everyone likes the tactical view of stuff, and those battles took forever. 5th edition has much shorter battles, like I would say 3 times shorter maybe on average, just a ballpark, which means there's much more time for talking and like group politics or that kind of stuff. And then I don't have nearly as much experience before that. I played 3.5, which was a very popular edition, maybe like 1 or 2 times. But for that one,
Hey buddy, don't do that.
You had like 3 times the amount of skills in your skill list. So, for example, things like in 5th edition, there's one skill called Performance, which is used for all of your like instruments, or if you're, like a juggler or something like that. In the original one, you had proficiency per instrument. So you had like 6 or 7 proficiencies. So you'd have like proficiency woodwinds, proficiency percussion, proficiency brass, proficiency... yeah.
絶対的に強固な意志だけが結果を紡ぎ出す。でもあなたにはそれがない。あなたは自分の実績を
That can be pretty fun.
自分で決めかねている臆病者よ。そんな中途半端な覚悟でよくこのような研究所の所長を引き受けられたものね。血塗られた両手をさらに血に浸すことでしか明かせぬ研究だと最初から分かっていたはずなのに。
否定はしません。私は中途半端かもしれない。
ならば所長を辞任なさっては。守秘義務は残るでしょうけど、あなたはこれ以上罪の意識に苛まれなくて済むでしょう。私にとってあなたはパートナーである以前にクライアントが要求した人事上の駒でしかない。
Hi, buddy.
こうして研究機関が
I heard you were trying to follow the
存
base
在はもう
boards.
重要ではないの。しかもその上、研究に対する覚悟が足りず、研究のパートナーとしても役立たずなら、あなたは無能のようなしよう。私は一人でも研究をやめない。どんな罪も後悔も恐れない。強固な意志だけが未来を紡ぐ。
Oh, he has the brain cell, he just chooses to use it for evil.
かつて高野先生が高潔な精神で成し遂げたように。
立派な決意だと思います。ですが、私もあなたに及ばないにしても、わずかの決意があってここへ来ています。そして、あなたの言う通り、私の手はすでに
He's smart, he's not a dopey cat. What the heck are you... as I say that, I'm like, what the heck are you doing? Huh? What are you doing, bud? Hmm? Come up with me. And I think... what are you doing? Okay, he didn't want to be with me, that's fine. I think I know what he wants to. So, behind the camera is my wife's desk, and she just put in a new IKEA shelf, and it's one of those, it's a metal frame, it's got a bunch of baskets in it that like slide into it. I think he wants to sit and lay down in one of those.
I can take it out. I was planning to anyway.
I think he wants to sit in one of those.
Yeah. Wait, let me try.
No, it's not on wheels.
Your wish is my desire, Kato.
そしてひなみ沢に来て、さらに血に浸しました。だからその責任を全うするまでは、私は逃げることができません。相変わらず私は罪を清算できず、苛まれ続けるでしょう。でも逃げない。必ずひなみ沢症候群の研究を決着させます。それだけがこの研究に命を捧げてくださった方、そしてこれから捧げることになるかもしれない方への最後の誠意だと思っています。
He wore a determined look on his face. Appeared different from even a moment before when he was baffled by Takano having brought up those painful memories. For a short while, Irie's eyes displayed the strong will, and then he turned around.
リカさんの検査は承諾が取れるでしょう。
心得ましたわ、省庁。
They got their consent the following week. And if he likes it, you can put a bed in like the bottom one or something, and then he has his bed in here. Under your desk. What number was that? It's 11. The first sacrifice. Okay, where's 12? Oh, where are you? Screen 3. Oh, we already did that one? What were we on before? Oh, was that 13? Oh, that was 13. Okay, 14. This is also on screen 3. Yes, please go to bed, Candy. It's what, like... is it 3 or 4 a.m.? Approaching 3 or 4 a.m. for you. Okay, routine inspection. Jeez, yeah, go to bed.
Cat. What do you want?
Lights came on in the meeting room as the slideshow ended, and all the auditors began to applaud, praising the Irie Institute's dramatic accomplishments.
It's not what the cat wanted.
What do you want, cat? You wanted to lie down where it was.
It was in the way.
It was in the way of where you wanted to lie down. Is that like the warmest spot? 'Cause it's like between our two computers. Is that why?
Maybe.
仮に進むとしても10年単位で3歩進んで2歩下がるような研究になると思っていました。
いやいや、それが短期間の間にこれだけの成果を上げられるとは。入江所長の努力と指導の賜物です。
そんなことはありません。私を支えてくださる優秀なスタッフとそちらの高野さんのおかげです。
ご謙遜。やはり脳に関しては入江所長は天才ですわ。何しろ脳に関しては誰も及ばない実績をお持ちなのですから。
そうですな。あなたと同じ年の医者であなたほど大勢の脳みそをご覧になってきた方はおりますまい。
おめでとうございます、入江兄さん。私もこれで東京に胸を張って報告に帰れます。
富武さんに良いお土産が持たせられて光栄です。あとニサというのはご勘弁を。どうしても馴染めませんので。というかリサさんって聞こえるんですよね。
まるで女性の名前みたいに聞こえますね。
でも二郎さんも影の立役者ですわね。なかなか成果の出せない私たちの予算を二郎さんが懸命に努力して維持してくださったおかげですわ。
いやでも今回の成果は劇的です。ひなみ沢症候群の病原体を特定し、今後の研究計画に具体的道筋をつけることができました。以後の進捗監査がとても楽しみになります。
これだけの成果があれば東京はねちっこく予算を削減しろとは言いますまい。
何しろ皆さんにお出ししている缶コーヒーの予算まで。
富武君、東京にしっかり報告して祝杯が挙げられるくらいの予算はつけるよう愚信したい。
無知ばっかりではいかんね。飴もないとね。
その飴は予算で還元していただけると一番嬉しいのですが。
Reading a fun chat. Yeah, we were talking about Cheerio.
It's not his day with the brain cell today.
Is he still up? What did you do on the windowsill for him?
He likes looking up.
Yeah. At the congenial atmosphere, a routine audit was over. He was surrounded and being questioned by the National Institute of Infectious Disease workers who joined the auditors.
高野さん、みんなの前では言えないけれど、今日の成果はすべて高野さんの積み重ねによるものだよ。
Nice, huh, buddy? Yeah?
Is he talking to you?
He is! You replied to me!
Jiro-san and I are the only ones here who know that strings were pulled in order to create the Irie Institute. Jiro-san can understand what I had to go through.
でもこれでようやく研究の舞台に立てたというところね。私の挑むべき相手がようやく同じ土俵に上がってくれただけ。正念場はこれからよ。そしてここからが最も楽しいところになりそうだけど。
それでね、今回の件で中川本部長の方からぜひ東京で報告会をしてほしいと伝言をことづかってるんだ。アルファベットの理事会もぜひ君と会合を設けたいって言ってたよ。みんな君に直接話を聞いてみたいようだね。
あらあら、二郎さんを経由した報告じゃ物足りないのかしら。
いやあそういう意味じゃないとは思うけどな。きっと噂の美人研究員を直接見てみたいんじゃないかななんて
あら嫌だ、二郎さんったら
失礼します。高野さんさ、東京からお電話です。
お待たせしました。高野です。
おお、元気にやってるかの。
小泉先生、わざわざお電話をいただけるなんてとても恐縮でございます。
いやな、みおちゃんの研究が大金星を挙げたという話が来てな、お祝いを言おうと思って電話したんだ。
ありがとうございます。はい、おかげさまで研究の第一段階であり最大の目標でもあった。
そうかそうか、ついにやったな、みおちゃん。天国で高野くんもきっと大喜びしているだろうの。
まだまだですわ。祖父は日南沢症候群の病原体特定などという段階を超えて研究していました。人の思想や意志が実は人以外の寄生的存在によって支配されていた可能性、それを暴いて初めて祖父の研究は偉業と称えられるのです。世界中の思想や宗教が全て寄生虫で説明できたなら
それは愉快だの。偉そうに振る舞っとる宗教家連中が単なる寄生虫の親玉に過ぎんと実証されたら、それは本当に愉快だろうの。ぜひそんな愉快なのを見せてくれ。みおちゃんがそれを見せてくれるまで、私は天国のお迎えを断り続けてるからな。
縁起でもありませんわ。でも楽しみにしていてくださいね。きっと世界中があっと驚く発表をしてみせますから。その時に初めて世界中が祖父の偉業を知り、祖父が残した資料を奪い合って読み合うことになるでしょう。そこまで至って私はようやく祖父への恩返しを終えるのです。
高野くんが羨ましいの。私はな、金なんかこんなにいらんかった。この半分は捨ててもいい。あんたみたいな自分の志を継いでくれる孫が一人いてくれたらと思うよ。
ありがとうございます。身に余るお言葉です。
あとな、小泉のおじいちゃんからのプレゼントだ。みおちゃん宛てにな、祝杯用のワインを1本送らせた。みおちゃんの家の住所がわからんかったから診療所宛てにしてある。取り寄せに手間がかかってるらしいからちょっと時間がかかるかもしれんが、届いたらみおちゃんの研究を手伝ってくれた人たちを集めてそれを振る舞ってあげなさい。
祝杯用にワインなんて。はてさて、小泉先生からどんな高級ワインが届くやら。
そんな高級酒と違う。みおちゃんも覚えと高野くんがいつも一本のワインを大切にしておったの。
I remember. That's right, my grandfather kept a certain bottle of wine. I don't know if he bought it himself or if someone gave it to him, but he treasured it, so he always opened it when his research finally gained recognition. As a child then, so I don't even remember what brand it was, but Mr. Koizumi would know. He went through all the trouble to find the same bottle of wine for this special occasion. For the first time in a while, Takano felt the same sunny warmth she experienced during her time with her grandfather.
ありがとうございます。小泉のおじいちゃん。
やっぱりみおちゃんにはそう呼ばれた方がしっくりくるの。どうもみおちゃんに先生と言われても自分のことだと思えなくてな。
I can't help but smile along with him, so I think Tomitake and Irie are just having a similar exchange.
そう呼ばれる方がお好きでしたら、人前以外ではそう呼んでも結構ですわよ。
できれば人前でもそう呼んでもらえると喜ぶんだがの。
I don't know exactly how old he is. And laughs so energetically, he'll live for many more years to come. Because the saying about living a long life is true after all.
高野君もみおちゃんのような子が本当の家族だったらと思うよ。本当にな。
My grandfather had his own family, of course. Because he was so into his research, he became estranged from his wife. They were legally married, but they lived separately. I never met his family when I was a child. I only met them after my grandfather committed suicide. During his latter years, my grandfather went into a psychological despair. He began to look at his life with cynicism. His condition became worse over time. He was shocked at his own dementia. He was afraid of living while his consciousness degraded. So he jumped off the rooftop of the hospital. Only my name was in his suicide note. None of his family members' names were in it. All his relatives showed up and took everything my grandfather left behind. They were afraid I was going to get his estate. They had lawyers and all that, so I backed down. I asked for everything to study in return. These idiots don't understand the value of my grandfather's research. They're actually happy to strike a deal out of court so that they could also get rid of the piles of paper and jars with human organs in them. They never even showed up once he was alive, yet like hyenas they appeared after his death. I never let them put their hands all over my grandfather's research. Fortunately, I was able to protect my grandfather's soul from their tainted hands.
それでは長くなると悪いから、これ困ったことがあったらいつでもおじいちゃんに頼りなさい。孫娘のためにいくらでも一肌脱ぐからの。
ありがとう、小泉のおじいちゃん。ミオはもっともっと頑張りますね。
That was this one, was it? 14. Yes. I think that's where we'll stop for tonight. So we made it through first 14.